We're starting the work session, so turn it over to Mr. McCardle.
Alrighty, we'll start this work session. We found some money to make up for the money that we took out of the budget, so I think we're sitting pretty good there.
Do you want me to walk through the
You want to walk
proposed
through
changes?
that? Yeah.
Okay. So at the last work session, we left off with some increases that council added to the budget with subsidy applications both for the general fund and the entertainment tax fund. We have had, I'm going to try and make this a little bit fuller. We have had a couple changes since then. I did pass this out on your table this morning. It's just a review list that we had used previously. I'll go through what we have for proposed changes. The first one, as everybody knows, the city pulled the conditional use application for the gun range that was going to be located out at the Kelly property. We did have $100,000 budgeted for professional services for final design in the general fund originally, so we're proposing to remove that since we're not moving forward with that conditional use permit. If there is still an effort to find another location next year, we could look at other funding sources for that at that time. So that's the really, whoa, sorry. I just went down there on my chair. That was the only change out of those, the original list of items. We do have some other things that council discussed. One of the things I heard council say was that you wanted to see contingency get back to previous levels. So I did show a 76,700. And before I go any farther, on the sheet on your desk, everything that's a change that I'm going through right now would be the items highlighted in yellow. So if you're following along, you just look for the yellow shaded items, and that would also be true for the information that's posted on the packet online as well. So I did add 76,736 for contingency, which would bring us back up to 811,628. That's the same level that it was last year. When we got the final construction numbers for the Streetscape and Plaza, I was budgeting 2 sets of 250 for the project to complete, and I'm only going to need one of those. So I was able to remove $260,000 from that project because I had it in there duplicated.
Okay, so sorry, explain that.
I just had it in there twice.
Oh.
And when we got the construction estimates, I only needed 200, and I have 280 in there, but some of that's for other things. I had more in there than what I needed,
Okay.
So I took out the remainder.
Okay.
So we still have enough in the budget to fully fund the streetscape. It's just that I had it in there twice.
The fourth and second.
Second, fourth, and railroad. Yep. As you already know, I did include in your handout there the changes that council proposed for the general fund increased 373 for subsidy applications, and we increased 250,000 for the entertainment tax fund. That was for the CVB. After we did the proposed budget, we did finally get the estimated increase in property taxes due to growth. That increase was 1.19%. That resulted in an increase to property taxes in the amount of $73,644. That was included in the resolution that council approved when we certified the taxes to the auditor's office in September? Yes. So that's just bringing that budget line up to match what we certified for our levy. The next line down, this one was kind of a up in the air when we first did our proposed budget. The reason why, we did have a contract that was in place that expired this year. Initially, we were told by the current bank contract that we knew that they weren't going to continue the contract at the same rate, and that we would likely see a decrease. Because of that, and we hadn't completed our bank bids, we wanted to see what those bids came in at. Michelle and I weren't comfortable increasing that until we knew what those were going to look like. Additionally, we also know we're going to have less cash in the accounts than we do now because we are budgeting next year to spend some of that cash out of reserves on the drawdown construction. Once we did receive the bank bids back, we looked at what that interest could potentially be at a variety of different funding scenarios. We looked at different cash balances. And after that, we felt comfortable going up another almost $200,000. That puts the annual budget in the general fund for interest income at $874,356. Now, there's a couple caveats I have to state with that. First of all, everyone needs to realize that's really should be looked at as one-time money. We don't know what interest rates are going to be in future years, so it's not like we can count on that money coming year after year, but we can use it this year in balancing our budget. Secondly, we were a little bit, I guess in our conversations, we were a little bit hesitant not knowing what interest rates were going to be and what our balances were going to be. But we also know that with our sales tax revenue, which I'll talk about next, if we're short on that interest income, our proposed sales tax budget should make up that difference as well. The next line on the sales tax revenue, we proposed going up $76,736. That's really just to offset this increase in contingency. That still puts us about where we were in 2022. So we are not, I have to think here because I'm working in 3 budget years right now, sorry. So it puts us at where we were about at in 2022, maybe slightly above, but we are still not factoring in the increases that we're seeing in 2023. So we did increase our sales tax budget. We're not at the level that we're collecting this year, but we feel comfortable that this is a budget that will be met at least, and we don't need to worry about having a shortfall in future years. And then because the the entertainment tax fund, I was able to remove some of that expense. I took $260,000 out of that community project line, and I only needed to add $250,000 in for the CVB. That just means we had $10,000 less in cash applied towards those projects. So we had already anticipated applying $30,000, you can see there. With the change, now we're only applying $20,000 out of the entertainment tax fund reserve towards those projects. We do have, I can't remember, I think we had $10,000 earmarked from the sale of the Casey's property when that happened, when that money came back to us after, Matt Dorr sold the property to Gunkles, and then Matt then donated his profit back to the city and earmarked it to be used towards the Streetscape project. So that money will be absorbed in this budget as well. So that brings you to a structurally balanced budget, which I think was the direction that you all gave to the mayor and I after the last budget meeting or work session. There's not a lot of changes, but those increases in the interest income, the property tax increase, and then some of those other, the decrease in the professional services for the gun range design really kind of made up that difference of what we added to the budget for subsidy applications. But we can certainly talk about any other questions that council had. That was the last direction I received.
I got one. Might as well start off here. I brought it up to your attention at the end of the last meeting, and it's something I overlooked. But anyway, we're taking out $160,841 out of the golf course reserves. I don't know if that got altered to $20,000 because of the carts.
So right here you'll see, I didn't print out a new cash applied for you. But yes, now it would be $140,841 coming out of the reserves to balance the golf course since we're not requiring that repayment.
Okay, things I want to point out here. I talked to all 8 board members when we voted on the $180,000 to add and taken out of the 24 budget. Everybody thought it was getting taken out of the general fund. So, when we did it, it was out of 24 budget. So when I was going through all the golf courses budgets, that wasn't there, so I missed it. Talked to a few other people, they didn't see it either when I sent it to them. Here's what we got with the golf course. Everybody's been saying they've been thrown in. Since 2020, they've thrown in nothing except for capital outlay. They threw in 22, they threw in $52,000 for phase one, and we got the money in there for phase two, which has not been used. So,
But it's transferred this year in 2023.
Correct.
Yep.
and so as a board, they've been trying to tell Jason to be conservative until phase two gets done. And I've been telling him to do that. Hold off, hold off. Worst thing you can do in equipment is to hold off. And I'm gonna give you what's, he got kicked right in the rear end this year. You know, the 100,000 the golf course, you know, that we got back, so we had it in. He did not know that, you know, when he made his budget out. So he's abused his greens mowers, which he's got two, well, ordered 2 years ago, only one's in yet. That's nobody's fault but the economy. He needs this equipment. So far he's got, on his mowers, I went out and looked at them. He's got 2 rough mowers. He put in for 2 fairway mowers, a rough mower, and a sprayer, which is 30 years old. The rough mowers are 6,500 hours. Life expectancy is 4,000. Fairway mowers are 6,500 and 4,200. Life expectancy 4,000 to 5,000. The other rough mower has 2,800 on. He has to keep that one. Now, so far he's on his 5th oil leak. When you have an oil leak on a fairway, it makes an inch wide long, 2 to 3, 2 years long probably, and wherever you stop, it's as big as you let it be. And it's very, a lot of times it's the middle heads blow you. If you don't smell it, you don't see it. He just had another one today on a par 3 7. He sent me some pictures. But he's got a golf package going for 2025, I think, and it's going to be 300,000 plus. But out of that, it's a 6-year payment, somewhere in the vicinity of 67,000. Well, they're trying to get the reserves. Golf is very, very hard to make a budget when you ain't got a clue when you're doing it in June where your income's going to be. So he's budgeting a year and a half away. And then you have a bad year, then you'd have to ask the city for money for your budget's done. But since COVID, you know, 21, they went up 120,000 gross income. You know, then a little flat. Last year was good. This year is really good. And it's not just Lakeview, it's all over the Midwest in the golf course, everyone I talk to. But we could save roughly 55,000 on interest if we leave the money in our reserves that are theirs, and so it can operate as an enterprise fund. And the money we voted on, 180,000, you know, basically we voted on it and we're taking it away. So, I mean, they give us money, so everybody in the city thinks we're subsidizing the golf course, and then we take 140,000, was 160,000 on my sheet, out of the golf course reserve funds. I got a little problem with that, you know, and the golf board didn't know it. I didn't know it. And it's right there if I study hard enough. I mean, there's a lot of pages to go through. So I think it's an injustice. We got a top 5 to top 10 golf course in the state, and we got equipment of a 9-hole course. And I can take it right and show it, you know. It's, and he's got to go 2024 with his equipment yet, because it's put off to 2025.
Dan, is the board willing to contribute any of their reserves towards the phase 2 now that we kind of know where things have all fallen out? Are they willing?
That's what it's doing. That's what it's doing.
They're paying the 140 out of their reserves.
Right, and you're saying
They're
you
actually
don't.
getting additional reserves in money they save in the health.
Right.
As is all the city
So
accounts.
you're right, but you're an enterprise, golf's an enterprise fund. They're supposed to stand on their own. So it's up to you. If you want to add it back in, you're going to have to take 140 or 60, whatever you're putting
I
in,
understand that.
out of somewhere. So
The other
So
thing is,
one comment I need to make sure that everybody's aware of, when we're talking about the fund balance, this is the projected balance at the beginning of 2024, and that's using a conservative estimate of revenue above budget of only 75,000, and they're already
this
above
is as
that.
of when?
That was when I did this at the last meeting, so it's already higher than that now.
Right.
So what I'm saying is the beginning balance is conservative. It will likely be higher than this.
Temporarily, it will be.
after you apply the
Because once
100,
you go into the winter.
Right, let me finish on the cash balance.
$100,000 you need out of the reserves to make it through the winter. You need 70,000
Nope.
expenses.
nope, let me finish my statement. The projected reserve balance assumes we're spending 100% of the budgeted expenditures in 2023. So there's no way what they spend over the winter will bring that down. I just included the revenue above budget because it would be above
Not what
we
I'm saying.
budgeted.
It takes, from the last time the revenue comes in, it takes roughly 100, you want to keep 100,000 on hand. You take 70,000 expenses over income, because your income quits November 1. Basically, it quits now. And you have, with the fund pass, you got year-round memberships. It is a little easier now. But, and then if you have, yes.
I would just like to be able to go through the projected balance quick, and then you guys can continue your discussion. When I say the projected beginning balance in 2024, that is projected as if we spent 100% of the budget in the Gulf Fund through the end of 2023, and we only get $75,000 of additional revenue above what is budgeted in 2023. So if they spend 100% of their 2023 budget, and they only get $75,000 above what the budgeted 2023 revenue is, we project that the beginning balance, January 1st, 2024, will be $376.09. If you apply the cash of $140, then the estimated balance at the end of the year, if they only brought in the revenue that's budgeted and they spent at or below the budgeted expenses, would be $229. We know in 2023, they're not going to spend the remainder of the health insurance because we are doing that health insurance premium for the end of 2023. So the better estimated ending 2024 actual cash balance with that insurance on top will be $241. If you use the same comparison that we use for the general fund and you look at that percentage of the reserves compared to the, the revenue for the next year, the fund balance would be at 48%.
That's even better.
The comparison, the general fund balance is 34%. So our management policy that council that we have talked about over the years is to keep the general funds operating, or the unobligated reserve fund between 30 and 35%.
The reasoning is he's holding off on equipment because he didn't have fund and he had this. Now he has the fund, and we can save $55,000 roughly on interest for what equipment is coming in 2025. And it's our money we're spending.
So I'm going to go back to what I said when we first talked about this. Why not just raise your price a little bit?
Do what?
Raise the price a little bit,
Well, you do every year.
a little bit more.
Well, you can outprice yourself. I mean, you look at other cities, every year we go through Brandon, Aberdeen, Huron, Watertown, green fees, cart rental, because.
I'm sure you do, but what I'm saying is maybe you're not doing enough. If
Well,
you're truly
how
a
much do
top,
we have
I
in
don't
our
know the
reserve?
golf course, but if we're truly a top 5 golf course, raise your rate.
And
They're getting what you can
In
get.
2024, you're going to have 48% in reserves.
That's because they didn't get to buy any.
no, that's if they did buy the equipment that is budgeted, and they can't buy any equipment that isn't budgeted because council hasn't authorized
I
it, and the
understand
city
that.
has a spending policy.
But they
that
were
says-
holding off.
Well,
They were holding off because they were getting beat up
We
over.
didn't- I don't think we
for
took
throwing
any,
in.
the only thing we took out of golf this year
Payloader.
was the payloader. That's the only piece of equipment that was removed. That's it. That's all he asked for.
and then the
I
five,
understand that because.
He asked
the
for a
board-
payloader to share with cemetery, and that was removed due to cost. That's the only piece of equipment he asked for that was taken.
Correct, because he waited for this package. One, you got to order it in 24 to get.
And
it
that money
25.
came out of our general fund. Correct?
which one?
Oh, to be on the 25
The
budget.
equipment.
Oh,
The what? I don't know what we're
So the
talking about.
payloader, that would
you
have been
remember the 2025 budget?
out of our
Oh,
general fund.
It was coming out of, well, no, it wouldn't come, part of it was, because he was paying part of it out of general fund, part of it out of golf. And so when it was cut, it's obviously removed out of both funds, general
Right.
fund and golf.
But my point is, the golf course, they worked, they cut to get equipment, and now they've saved, he's pinched, he's worked extra hours to keep overtime down, And then now we're taking away the equipment that he needs. And it's, and, you know, I don't know, I'm sure it's proper and everything, but, you know, the golf board knew nothing about the 161,000 coming out of reserve, 160,000.
So maybe to clarify, it would help me to understand what
Something
was
last
cut
week.
out of the 2024 budget that we're talking about. What I had was the payloader shared with golf. They had in the budget that they wanted
I
to
understand.
order an agreement that was a 5-year like lease payment,
Yeah,
but that wasn't included in their budget request.
I understand that.
So
When it goes to our budget in 2025, we would have the money to pay for it, to save interest.
can't they still request to do that for 25? I guess that's where maybe I'm confused.
You remember in your long-term deal, you said, this spring, you said that 2025, the golf course got a 5-year lease on equipment.
That's when they said it would be coming up.
Right.
So what are we asking?
Well, they don't want us to throw in, they don't want the city to throw in money in an enterprise fund. We take 180,000, and everybody here voted and thought it was coming out of general fund. So we voted on 180,000 coming out of the general fund, and now 160 originally are taken out of our reserves. So we might as well pay for that for phase 2.
Okay, there's 120 coming out of reserves. The original agenda item, which I did share with everybody, said it would be determined in the 2024 budget
I understand
process.
that.
You're
But
in that
everybody thought
process
the
now,
2024
so,
budget was out of the general fund.
but council has the right to change that. You guys can change that
That's
at
why
any
I'm
time
asking right now. I want to take out the 100, if you took 20 off,
So what you're asking for is the 140,000 to
Right.
be out of general fund, not out of the golf fund.
correct.
I'll veto that if you do that. That's why I did not veto it the second time. We found a way to make this work using your funds rather than
Well, it's
taking
just
out.
finding a way around it is all it's doing. They're giving us money and they're taking it away. That's not right.
So I want to clarify, was there equipment that you originally put in this budget
Yeah, that'd be a Kevin answer.
for the golf course?
Other than the payloader, that was the shared, no.
So then we really don't have any basis for that. I mean, in my mind,
Because they didn't have the money. The money is there now.
But Dan, if they need equipment and they had the money,
We didn't have it because they were waiting for phase 2. When the budget was done, we weren't sure where the phase 2 budget comes in over, what was going to happen. It's tough to do when you're doing it in June. Phase 2 wasn't even done. We got 180,000. I don't know what date that was approved on.
but I guess what I'm trying to say is you had the money saved to buy
Not really
equipment.
saved. It's just it's in.
Well, in a
It's
fund.
saved. It's in your
It's
fund.
a cash.
So when you go 60,000 down, so you'll have it there.
But
You still have
wouldn't you have to run it through
240,000.
the budget to buy any piece of equipment?
Yes, you would.
Yes, you would.
Yes.
It has to, even though it's an enterprise fund, if it's not included in the budget, our spending policy says they don't have permission or authority to purchase it.
Correct.
So if it's not in the budget, they have to request it. And if they don't, then it comes in as a supplemental appropriation, which you guys do in March. They have to have authority to make the purchase. It has to be included.
Right.
I think you guys got a decision to make. Do you need equipment or do you need phase 2?
Excuse me?
Do you need equipment or do you need phase 2?
They're two totally different. One capital outlay, one's keeping up the project.
Well, and I guess I'll just show you, if you weren't paying the cash applied in 2024, the fund balance would be 76% of revenue.
If they don't get rained out the whole year and you have zero income. I mean,
No,
That, when you get audited, they don't look at that. They look at what you
Well-
have for that balance now.
but
But we can't spend the funds because it's got to get approved. It's a tough deal when you're at a golf course
Right.
place.
But if next year you had a shortfall in revenue and we were needing cash to meet the 2024 budget, that would be the time that you request a contingency transfer out of general fund into the golf fund to make up that difference. That's why you have the contingency fund set aside too. We've used it for shortfalls in sales tax revenue, probably the first 3 years I was here when sales tax in the original budget were projected too high. We've brought that down since, or let it catch up essentially. But
But everybody voted for the 180,000, assuming it was coming out of the general fund.
Not true.
I told you that. You called.
Okay? 7 people thought it was coming out of general fund, a mistake.
Okay, so here's the bottom line. You need to decide if you want to take that 140 or 160,000 out. If you do, what item you want to remove from the general fund.
And then
And-
just ask for a roll call.
Just to be clear, your intention would be then to veto that decision if we made that decision?
If you're going to take it out of the general fund, I'll veto it, yes.
So next year, the golf board could come to us, based on the numbers that we are seeing, the golf board could come to us next year and make a proposal to withdraw money from their current account in 2024 to buy.
Absolutely. They could do it in April as part of the supplemental process. They could come in and
That's what I'm
request.
thinking, but I don't think
that-
some people else picked
Yes.
it up here.
Yeah, you're,
Pun intended, grass. But
Correct.
anyway, that's what I was thinking, based on the numbers you see, Dan, next year, your golf board and the park board could come to this council and ask to use part of their current funding in 2024 and take it out based on those numbers. You're going to have the money,
Understand that,
you're going to have the
but
money
then
to do
Where you get
that.
beat up is, people think it's coming out of the
If you had a
general fund.
catastrophic failure, you could come and ask for contingency. to
I
buy it.
understand that, and then years to come, then they'll say, well, geez, we've been throwing in money every year.
How
Well,
long
we
does
got
it take to get them over, Dan?
Depends on the more. He's got to order in 24 spring, or get them in 25, the hope to get them in 25. Like I said, it's 2 years out, he's only got 1 Greensboro this year. I shouldn't say 2 year, year and a half.
even, I mean, if, not to make this more complicated, but if they wanted to get something ordered to speed that process up, they could still ask council to do it now, and we do a supplement out of their reserve in the next year, because they're not going to pay for it this year. I mean, you can still give the authority to do it, it's just the department head can't go out and spend it without having that authority first.
We don't have much time left. I'm gonna make a motion, we take the $140,841, we're taking out of the golf course general fund, or reserves, taking that out of the budget.
Taking it out of the general. Is that, you want it out of the general fund?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second? No, this is your show, not mine, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Force of habit, yep. I apologize. Keep in mind, you're going to have to take 180,000 out of somewhere else.
140, right?
Well, he made a motion for 180.
Oh,
140.
Oh, 100, okay.
140 is
Whatever
the
this motion is, it's got to come out of somewhere else.
It sounds like there's not a second, but I'll just chime in. I don't know if you want to kill it or not before we move, or lack of.
Chime in first, give us your, what your.
Oh, so I was just going to say, as Marty kind of pointed out, is, first of all, we haven't seen a list of equipment. You can give it to us, Dan, and I haven't seen it, and I'm sure there is a need, and I'm sure, there was some thought process put behind it with the board. But as Marty pointed out, we can move forward, but I think we need to have the list of equipment and the estimated cost, and then we can decide if we want to do a supplement when we get to the end of the year here, and then we can move forward, because the equipment list I have here, I don't see any mowers or
It's
anything.
2025 is what they moved it to, he's got to order it in 2024.
Okay.
Yes. I go, why'd you wait so long?
So then, as Stephanie pointed out, we can do a supplemental
I
then at the
understand that.
beginning. But we've never seen a list, so it's kind of hard to.
well, they did show the list, but they said that it wasn't for the 2024 budget, and we're not
What are you
adopting,
getting? Oh, I
We're-
got that.
we're not adopting a 2-year budget, you're adopting the 2024 budget. So if their expenditure is occurring in 2025, it would go into the 2025 budget.
I'd say if it takes 2 years to get it, might as well get an order going,
Well, I
get
think,
ahead of the game.
I think the golf board's hope was that by having that contingency fund available, with the other project already earmarked, the hope was that they would have that contingency so they wouldn't have to come back and ask for money from the general fund to dip into or pay for that, because they would have that money in their contingency to pay for that equipment in 2025 when they needed to purchase it next year, I believe was the hope of, I don't want to speak for Jason, but I think that was his intention with that fund being still available at that full value of $380,000.
And from what I'm seeing, they'll be able to still do that and pay the city the $140,000. They'll be able to do both. It's right there.
Do we know
How much is it?
total?
Excuse me?
How much is it?
Right, a little over 300,000 for 2 fairway mowers, a rough mower, and a sprayer.
So again, I only estimated that they're going to get $75,000 above the revenue budget in '23, and I think, Dan, when you and I looked at it, they were over
Years ago,
100.
The city was throwing in.
Right. They were already over 100,000 over the 2023 revenue. So I do think that fund will build. And if council wants to use contingency towards it, I mean, that's your call too. But it's not something we would include in '24 if you're not buying it till '25.
We have to move into our regular meeting. So you have a motion.
Yeah, there was
We don't have a second, though.
no second yet.
Guess it'll die for lack of a second.
So what's your intent, Mayor? Are we going to put the budget hearing on the back of the city council tonight?
No, it'll be the first, by our city code, we will hold the budget hearings in November.
Yep.
So first reading would be in November. The first meeting, now I don't have it in front of me. November 6th, with the second reading and adoption at the second meeting.
But we really haven't gotten through
Do we-
everything.
Unless you have more
But do you want to
discussion
still
items
meet
you want to
on
go through.
October 30th was the other budget meeting that we have scheduled?
I would like to have more discussion.
Yeah, can we pick up after council? And go back to budget after council?
Sure.
Okay?
All right, let's do that.
Okay.
There's a couple items, I think.
Adjourn this and go to the regular meeting.
Call the meeting to order and start with pledge of allegiance. Invocation by River Tree Westland.
Good evening, everyone. My prayer for us tonight comes from Psalm 90. Lord, you've been our dwelling place throughout all generations. Before the mountains were born, or you brought forth the whole world, from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. Teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom. And may the favor of the Lord our God rest on us. Establish the work of our hands for us. Yes, establish the work of our hands. Father, I thank you for our city leaders, and I pray tonight, Lord, you'd give the wisdom to make decisions, Lord, that just create such a healthy environment where those who would do good and those who would do right see fruit from their labor. I pray this in your name. Amen.
Thank you. Roll call.
Dosher. McCardle. Barrington.
Here.
Bathke.
Here.
Sharps. Here. Smith.
Here.
Sabers.
Here.
Goldammer.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. Approval of consent agenda items. Items appearing on consent agenda may be removed by city council member for discussion at the beginning of the formal agenda items. Is there anything you wish to remove? Discussion.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion by Mr. Barrington, second by Mr. McCardle. Discussion. Anybody in the audience wish to address these items?
Good evening, council and mayor. It's quarterly report time. I won't take up too much of your time this evening. Get a long agenda. I want to let you know that we have an incentive program for the Mitchell Area Development Corporation. If you know of a family that is considering moving back to Mitchell, South Dakota, we have $1,000 for them for their expenses as long as one person in the family is working full-time and they live within the city of Mitchell. So let them know that there's extra incentives for them. We've put on a new twist on our on-site hiring events. We actually did what we're calling a drive-through job fair. We asked employers if they wanted to put information together, and we handed out 50 bags to people over their lunch break about open positions in Mitchell, and the outcome was 2 people going to Davison County to apply for a job, 1 to Toshiba, and 1 to Graphic Package was hired. So we're going to try that again before too long. I've got some housing updates. Last week, we have the groundbreaking on Ridgeview on Foster. On South Lake, we were approved for $925,000 in ARPA funds for the infrastructure for South Lake. The good news also by Ridgeview is that we did hear back from HUD after several months of quiet. All they're needing for the packet is a void check, which sounds pretty positive to me. So hopefully we've got some funds coming our way for infrastructure. We did have our annual recognition event last week, Thursday. Thanks to those of you who were able to come. I just want to do a shout out to the people that were awarded that evening. The committee, Vote Yes for Kids, earning an 82% approval on our school bond election, were awarded with the Community Service Award. For the first time, we've done 2 awards. John McLeod was also recognized for his volunteer work and leadership on the Lake Mitchell shoreline. The Volunteer of the Year went to Jennifer Haddon with LifeQuest and 401 Create. The CVB recognized the Palace City Kiwanis and the fact that they put on a great half marathon each year with the Tourism Excellence Award. Mitchell Main Street recognized Jeff Logan for the Main Street Champion Award. And finally, the Development Corporation recognized the Mitchell Family Business of the Year to Ron's Bicycle and Locksmith Shop. So we had a great evening, and it was a great venue as well. So a couple of other things, then I'll be done. We did create the Community Concierge Program, as you know, and Doreen is working with a group of over 500 newcomers to Mitchell. Those folks came from 9 states. They work for 17 different employers, and so far that's really working out well as far as welcoming new people to town, getting them to stay in town, and she's been a great resource for them. As far as business recruitment, retention, and expansion, tonight we'll have our TIF for the expansion of 15th Avenue in just a few minutes in front of you, and we'll be able to answer any questions for that. And we have had 6 groundbreakings in the last 6 months, so it's really feeling like things are picking up here in the Mitchell community. We are supporting the expansion of daycare. I've talked about that before. There are renovations being made to our building along the bypass, and when that all gets set and done, Little Learners will have the capacity to take care of 90 small children. So, any questions? I'll let you go then. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
David Lambert with the Region. In the same report, quarterly report, you'll see that I've highlighted 3 specific items, obviously dealing with business development, housing development, and advocacy. The reality, though, is that, you know, a $500 million soybean processing plant is always a good thing. And obviously, the continued construction of that over the next 18 to 24 months will have an economic impact to not only the city of Mitchell, but the region. Farmers are excited, partly because most of them got their beans out before the big rain, but the other part is that obviously they see the value that it will be given to them because they'll be able to deliver to another source that's closer, hopefully with more money in their pockets. So housing development, we're trying to finish up on some of our existing housing projects. The reality, though, is that things are starting to slow down. Demand is still there. I do have a couple of builders in the region, Ethan Co-op Lumber and Jensen Design Build, that are looking at smaller, more affordable homes in that $200,000 range on a lot. Many of them do not have a garage, but to be honest with you, from a starter home perspective, that's a good thing, and we're going to continue to push forward with regards to that. So other than that, you know, things look pretty good as we wrap up this year, and move into 2024. Any questions? If not, I thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wish to address these items, consent agenda? Okay, roll call.
Barrington. Aye. Batsky.
Aye.
Charks.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Sabers.
Aye.
Goldammer.
Aye.
Dosher. McCardle.
Aye.
Motion carries. Citizens input. If you need to address the mayor, members, city council, on an item that was not on the agenda, excluding personnel items, please come forward to the podium, state your name and your concern. Presentations are limited to 3 minutes. Items will be considered, but no action will be taken at this time. I want to start off by recognizing a city employee who got a special recognition. Mr. North, if you'd come up here to the front. I have a proclamation. If you don't know, Mr. Zach North with our library was named new librarian of the year, correct? All right. In recognition of Zach North being awarded 2023 new librarian of the year in South Dakota, whereas the South Dakota Library Association instituted a new librarian of the year award in 1983 to recognize beginning librarians who are making an impact upon the quality and role of library service. Whereas candidates for this award have 5 years or less of service within the state, but have either transformed a routine task or untried idea into imaginative, creative service, or projected a dynamic image of the professional librarian into the community and offered that community something which it did not have before. Whereas Zach, who was hired as a technical services and circulation assistant in 2019, and then promoted to the adult services librarian in 2020, was presented the new Librarian of the Year award by the South Dakota Library Association for his contributions at the Mitchell Public Library. Whereas Zach used his technology skills to implement live and recorded social media broadcasts during the pandemic, as well as training for other staff to do the same. Whereas Zach also used those skills to record technology training videos for the library patrons. Whereas Zach has used his graphic design skills to improve the library's marketing, including implementing the new city brand on those materials. Whereas Zach has also demonstrated his creativity in finding new ways to reach the community through the library's programs, including collaborating with a new market space business, scheduling summer programs at the outdoor Carn Palace Plaza stage, and developing a teen advisory board for the library. Whereas Zach has proven himself to be a team player who cares that the library offers quality programming services to the community of Mitchell and is always looking for ways that the library can improve the services offered. Now therefore be it resolved, the mayor of the city of Mitchell and city council would like to formally recognize and congratulate Zach for his award and his contributions to the service of the city of Mitchell, dated this 16th day of October 2023. Bob Everson, Mayor. Congratulations. Thank you for your service. Good job. Okay, with that, we'll open it up to any comments.
Hello, my name is Jordan Hansen. I just want to remind everyone that next Monday at 7 o'clock, they're having a lake debate, and I'll be on the stage. This is how many studies we've paid for in the last 20 years, like 700 pages. I've read it all twice, so I know everything about everything in the last 20 years. I've visited several states and looked at other lakes. So if you guys are super interested in finding my reports or what my reports found, you should check it out. So anyone else, please watch.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wish to address council?
Doug Greenberg, Corn Palace. Just a reminder to the community, it's a great opportunity. If you're interested in the flu vaccines, it's a free flu clinic tomorrow here at the Corn Palace, 3 to 7 p.m. It's Davidson County Department of Health in support of the South Dakota Department of Health. So ages 6 months to 64 years of age are available for vaccines for free, 3 to 7 here at the Corn Palace tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wish to address council? Okay. Board of Adjustment, entertain a motion for City Council to recess to this Board of Adjustment.
So moved. Second.
Motion. Who was first there? Motion by Mrs. Chark, second by Mr. Goldhammer. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Hearing and action on the application for Zion Lutheran Church, conditional use permit. Zion Lutheran Church has applied for conditional use permit to operate Religious Institute Church Fellowship Hall and Office Space located at 601, 605, and 611 East 4th Avenue. 620 East 3rd Avenue is the existing church address. Legally describes lots 5 through 7, Block 32, Cooley and Guernsey, Addition, City of Metro Davis County, South Dakota. Said property zone R2, single family. Mr. Jenigan.
Mr. Mayor and Council, Planning Commission recommended approval of this 4-0 with 2 absent and 1 abstention. The notices were sent out to neighbors, published in the paper, signs posted. There was 1 letter returned in favor of it. The applicant would like to build a fellowship hall there. They have their existing just south of there. You can see on the plans up front, they have future plans for the area as well. They have right of first refusal on a couple lots already. They own 1 lot. And then there's another house where that future classroom addition would be, but they're looking 30 to 40 years down the way for something like that. The applicant's here if you have any questions for them. I can answer any you have as well. Your next item is the variance that would go along with this, but procedurally you have to do the conditional use before the variance.
I don't know that this is a question about the conditional use permit. It's more maybe just about the building itself. But is someone here that could just answer a question for me? So I see these drawings that we have, and I just wondered if you could just tell me what kind of a building this is. I mean, I want you to know I'm really happy that you're building it and all of those things, but it looks, tell me about the building.
Okay, so I'm Eric Schramm with Zion Lutheran Church. This is a fellowship hall. Our current fellowship hall is down in the basement of the current church, and we do not have accessibility. Our elevator has been deemed not functional, and so it led to this project. The exterior of this building is going to be a stucco panel, very similar to, well, not similar to, it is the same panel used on the Pizza Ranch building. And so it is a metal panel that has stucco look to it. And then the other part will be a smooth gloss. That color scheme is not the final color scheme by any means. It's also going to house the office space for our pastors and our work staff, conference room. Our church is very old and has multiple levels, and so there's actually no spot other than the sanctuary that is ADA accessible. This building would bridge all those gaps for our congregation.
So is the intention ultimately to raise the current facility and just move everything into this building or not?
We would, I think probably with the historic value of the building we currently have, we would always continue to have our sanctuary be our place of worship. This would be potlucks after, if you had a funeral service or something, this would be where people could gather afterwards.
So the reason I ask is because I feel like your church is a beautiful brick, if I'm not mistaken. I didn't drive by it, but I meant to, but I feel like I have it memorized because it's so visible. And so it's a beautiful brick building. And so when I saw this, I was like, I just want it to be more something that looks more like it belongs in that neighborhood. Will you, or is that the intention to kind of
Absolutely.
make it
So
blend in with the neighborhood? And
So we're working with Palace Builders and Pitts for the architecture, and the plan is the stucco panel would be matching the stucco that's on our education wing currently. And so we're trying to tie the colors together very close. We had multiple renditions, and this was with the taller peaked roof is going to simulate the taller peaked roof of the church. It's not in the church's budget to use stone or brick, and so we have landed on a little bit more economical.
But it won't be white paneling with a red roof?
No.
Okay, good.
No, it'll be matching of the same building, so.
That was what I was hoping you would say.
Yep.
Thank you. I'll move approval of the conditional use permit.
Motion by Mrs. Jerks.
Second.
Second by Mr. Goldhammer. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Hearing in action on the application of Zion Lutheran Church, a variance permit. Zion Lutheran Church has applied for a variance permit for the following: side yard setback along Burr Street of 17.5 feet versus 20 feet to account for the point of the building overhang. Front yard setback along the alley of 16.5 feet versus 25 feet to account for pedestrian drop-off, roof, and overhang. Off-street parking on site of 0 versus 89 spaces. Standard parking and ADA parking is located in the existing adjacent church property, and additional parking is planned in the next phase of construction to the east of the subject property. This is located 601, 605, and 611 East 4th. Legally described as lots 5 through 7, block 32, Cooley and Guernsey, addition City of Metro Davidson County, South Dakota. Said properties are R2 residential. Mr. Janik.
Mr. Mayor and Council, Planning Commission recommended approval 4-0, 2 absent and 1 abstain. Letters were sent out to the neighbors, published in the paper, signs posted. There was 1 letter returned in favor of it. The neighbor actually to the east of this, where that future classroom addition, spoke at the meeting saying he's in favor of it. He was worried that his house was getting sold out from underneath him when he saw the addition on there, but it's not the intent right now. Yet. If you go to the plan view of this, Stephanie, please. So this is a little different for where they're calling their front yard and their rear yard. Both require a 25-foot setback front and back. Different the other plan. So the rear yard is actually going to be along 4th Avenue, and the front yard will be along the alley there. So their drop-off for the second portion of the variance, they have a drop-off there for people, so it's an overhang. That's where that variance comes into on the side yard, side corner. There you go. You can see their kind of peak out on the west side of it is the 17.5 foot. And then obviously the parking would require 89 spaces for the capacities that's there. They don't foresee them needing to have the church and this being occupied at the same time. So right now it'd be, they'd use the existing church parking spaces for most of it. Unless there's a big event, it could happen that you need to have both spaces. But as you saw in the future development plans, they are planning for the future for parking to the east of this, and that would actually be more for the church parking, and then the existing parking that they have for the church would be for this facility. I can answer any questions you have for me or the applicants here if you have any questions for him at all.
Okay, entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Goldhammer, second by Mr. Bathke. Further discussion?
I probably missed it, but what was the planning commission's vote on this one?
4-0, 2 absent, and 1 abstain.
Anybody in the audience wish to address this? Okay. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Reconvene the City Council, entertain a motion for Board of Adjustment to adjourn City Council, reconvene regular session.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Goldhammer, second by Mr. Barrington. Okay. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action on appeal by Jeffrey Bathke on BOA approval of Jason Greenway variance located at 5740 Island Courts. Mr. Jenigas.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I'll just give you a brief rundown of the past for this. Planning Commission at their September 11th meeting, motion to approve, it was 3-4-2.
Everybody start dancing.
That'll be donuts tomorrow too, Mr. Sabers. We got her covered.
At the September, yeah, there you go. The September 11th Planning Commission, it was 3-2 with 2 absent. At Board of Adjustment on September 18th, it was unanimously tabled or postponed to the next meeting. And at the October 2nd Board of Adjustment meeting, it was approved 7-0 with 1 abstention. On October 11th, we received the notice of appeal from Jeffrey Bathke per 163 General Appeal Procedures. You all received that, as well as it's in the packet. And you received an email from Jason Greenway with what he had for his hardships for this location. History of the area, the master plan was approved in 2003. This lot was approved in 2008. Public Works has looked at the site layout for this area and deemed that there is no site triangle issues for that location. There's no 35-foot setback that would deem site visibility issue with a 25-foot setback there that you approved. I can answer any questions that you have for me. Jeff is here to present his case, and the Greenways are also here.
Mr. Bath, you want to come up? There you are.
Mayor, before Jeff starts on his, I'll just give a little bit of the procedural information on where we're at, because I understand that we're here as the city council tonight. But if you recall, back when the variance was granted, we had many of the same individuals sitting as the Board of Adjustment, which, same people, but different body acting on it. So tonight, what the council is considering is whether that Board of Adjustment decision should stand as it was made, or whether the action should go back to the Board of Adjustment for further consideration. So that's really the only two things that would be an option to do tonight, because we're dealing with two different boards, even though it's the same people. So
what is the, it's just a simple majority?
tonight would be a simple majority, either to send it back to the Board of Adjustment or to leave that Board of Adjustment decision to stand.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Bathke, go ahead.
Jeff Bathke, I have appealed the decision from the October 2nd Board of Adjustment decision for the variance approval from Jason Greenway. And I have three reasons for the basis, but number two does have 7 criteria in it. But the first one is back in 2008 when the plat was signed and when the city council approved the plat, it does not meet the 150-foot requirement to city code, so both of those were invalid. The lot 47 is only 111 feet wide. 52 of the 57 lots in the development do not meet the width requirement for an urban development. Number two, when making the decision when making decisions in the Board of Adjustment, the applicant must prove and the Board of Adjustment members must follow the powers and duties outlined in Section 10.3.3 of the City Code. And there are 7 items in there that I do not feel were properly considered. The first one is what conditions, if any, exist on this building lot that do not exist on other building lots in the district. And again, with 52 of the 57 meeting the same criteria, this one is not unique. It is the same as 52 of the 57 lots in the development. They are all, those 52, they don't meet the minimum width, they're all on a curved road, and they all vary in shape and size. The second one is why a strict interpretation of the zoning code would deprive the owner of rights commonly enjoyed by others in the same district. Builders are not deprived of anything when it's new construction on bare ground being developed. There's over 7,000 square feet of buildable area left on this lot when you take the setbacks into consideration, and it only requires 3,000 square feet for the residence in the garage. There's plenty of room to fit it on the existing lot with the setbacks. The third one is special conditions and circumstances do not result from actions of the applicant. Mr. Greenway purchased this lot almost a year ago. He's had plenty of time to do the research on it, but in fact he didn't, and he designed a house, had the materials ordered, and then tried to fit it on the lot. They wouldn't even have known it unless I looked out my living room and called the builders and said, I can tell from here that those stakes are not inside the setbacks. The research wasn't done. So the failure to design a structure that will fit is a direct result of the actions of the applicant, which cannot be considered as a reason in the code. The fourth one, non-conforming uses of neighboring lands, and this is the precedence, and you cannot use precedence. So I know the applicant and the board both considered that, well, we've approved them before, and you can't use precedence on a variance. The fifth one, Board of Adjustment will examine the reasons set forth to justify granting the variance. As stated earlier, the reasonable use of the land could be attained if the residence and the garage were designed to meet the setbacks. The next one is the Board of Adjustment must find that the granting of the variance will be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the ordinance and will not be injurious to the neighborhood or otherwise detrimental. And I will disagree with the view that if you drive out there, the driveway coming into the development is drastically steep. As vehicles come up and turn to go south, there's accidents there probably once a week, or near accidents there once a week. You can't see coming around that corner. You put a structure in there that's 10 feet closer into it, there will be accidents there. It is an unmarked intersection with a steep entrance, and corner lots have a larger setback for a reason. Instead of the 25, that's why there's 35 on the front and the 25 on the side instead of 8. So there's a reason for that. The last one is that consideration of submission and testimony is that the board could only consider what they received in their packet and the testimony that they received the night during the hearing. And that's not what happened. Councilman Sharks admitted she spent over an hour with the developers on the site. That's information that she has with the developers that the other board members do not, and it's illegal. The last part is that it doesn't meet the definition of hardship. And the definition of hardship is a restriction on property so unreasonable that it results in an arbitrary and capricious interference with basic property rights in the personal circumstances of the owner or user, and the property is rendered unusable without the variance. It is not unusable. There's only 42% of the usable land used by the building, the residence, and the garage. So that's just inside the existing setbacks. That's not the whole yard. So there's plenty of room for this structure. So I do feel that granting this variance does not meet the Board of Adjustment powers and duties outlined in Section 10.3.3 and the comprehensive plan and the state statute, and I would ask that you send this back to the Board of Adjustment for reconsideration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Council. I'm Jason Greenway. I received the variance here 2 weeks ago. Just want to apologize in advance for taking more of your time on this matter. My wife and I are grateful for the time you've already given us here in our request for the now approved variance. Throughout this process to construct our home, it seems there's been obstacles at every turn. One of the more prominent issues and the hardship we dealt with is the shape and size of the lot in conjunction with the much larger setback requirements associated with the urban development zoning standards. Mr. Bathke himself has repeatedly commented on the small inadequate size of the lot in comparison to the corresponding zoning requirements that are associated with that zoning district. In addition to its narrow width, it also requires a 20-foot side setback versus the 8-foot of neighboring properties due to its location on the corner. Furthermore, the 105 feet in width, I know Mr. Bathke stated 111. If you look at the image where it does measure 111 feet, it actually protrudes into the easement area for the sign of the development. It's also within the 35-foot setback, so we couldn't build there anyway. So the widest point on the west side, where we were told is the only exitable road on the property, is 105 feet in width, which is already 45 feet less than it's been stated it should be. It's quickly reduced to less than 93 feet where it dips down there as you move east towards the middle of the lot, which just worsens this problem. This prevents the house from being able to be moved further east and compounds the issue to the west of the large curving front yard. The large curve creates a situation in which the house meets the vast majority of setback requirements before intruding into the 35-foot setback due to the radius curve. This curve has also caused major headaches across multiple agencies when determining where front and side yard setbacks are determined. So what's kind of odd about it is the church actually was a good example here before that of side and front yard differences with the lines running parallel to the property line and then parallel to the building, and then a perpendicular line determining front and side yard. We've had multiple different opinions on where that should be set, or basically just it kind of is where it is was the opinion that we got. And what is really interesting about that is on the same side of the house, one spot can be in compliance with the setback requirement, and then 1 inch over on the boundary line, it can be out of compliance with the variance, or sorry, with the setback requirements on the same side of the house, and that happens on 2 sides of the house. So it's a really odd situation. I think you can tell by the shape of the lot. It's not the same shape as some of the other lots out there. It has a lot of other things going for it, including its smaller size. Based on these circumstances alone, there was inherent hardship with the lot from day one. Another major factor priorly mentioned was the removal and A major factor that I priorly mentioned was the removal and relocation of 2 property pins on the north property line after a survey had already been conducted and building plans finalized based on that same survey. So we had SPN hired to come out there, locate and survey pins. After that, we made a determination that our house would fit on the lot. A subsequent visit by SPN, and we do have video of it, 2 pins were relocated from the north boundary line, moved further south. And that further reduced the width of an already narrow lot. There are additional hardships that I've presented both here as testimony as well as prior emails sent to the City Council. I would be happy to elaborate on any of the previously mentioned material. We appreciate you considering the information and facts when the determination that you too felt there was hardship significant enough to grant the variance. We have followed the procedure of filing for a variance that was completed by receiving your approval as City Council and determining authority on this matter. We're just looking forward to getting our home started, and I just want to say thank you again for your time and consideration. If you had any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them for you.
Thank you. Okay. Discussion amongst council.
Mark, refresh my memory, how much setback did we allow for their variance? How much over?
It's 10 feet. It's 25 versus the 35 on the front yard.
And they're going to go
To 25 feet. Yep.
so 10 feet over.
Yep.
I thought it was just a couple. Justin, does the issues that Mr. Bathke brought up, does that put us into a situation where we need to send it back to avoid legal?
I guess I can't say that for sure one way or the other. Ultimately, it's this council's decision to decide whether the actions of the Board of Adjustment that have already taken place were adequate or whether it should be sent back for further proceeding. I don't know where that's going.
Did that answer your question? Clear as mud?
So if we do nothing and we just say, no, we decided 2 weeks ago, stands, it may not be done yet.
May not be done if you send it back to the Board of Adjustment either. It's hard to say.
I think that would largely depend on how Mr. Bathke plans to proceed, depending on the outcome tonight.
Okay. Any other questions? Are you going to abstain?
I'm going to abstain.
I move that we uphold the variance.
Okay, motion by Mrs. Charks to uphold the variance. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Goldhammer. Okay, further discussion.
I just want to make for sure that we've got understood is the reason I voted for it is because Mr. Greenway laid out hardships, which I truly believe is the case. So we did as a group consider the hardships and voted accordingly. So I just want to make for sure that that's part of our discussion.
And I think that it's important to also add that precedence was never something that we, at least speaking for myself, that I based my vote on. I know that precedence was brought up in a letter from Ann Daly, but it wasn't something that I don't think any of us talked about precedence in terms of that being a reason for us to support or not support this variance.
Yeah, for me, it was also looking at the neighboring lots and what the houses looked like on those lots. And just as we talk about positioning the house, and I know there was discussion about shifting it or not shifting it, to maybe make it work without a variance on there. But I thought in the truest ownership of the neighboring properties, so you don't have some obscure house at a weird angle, allowing that variance to conform to what the houses on that land next to them look like at least as somebody who's owned property, that's what I'd prefer my neighbor to build, something similar in style. So it's close to what the neighborhood looks like anyways.
And I just feel like I want to add one more thing. I've served on the council now for going on 11 years. And when we sit as a Board of Adjustment, there are many times, I think that the reason that we have properties staked out so that we can see what the plan is so that we can go and look at it firsthand. And so in 11 years, I've gone and observed a number of properties. I've talked to, because sometimes you need to, like, if I had stood there and looked at the post, I'm not sure that I would have understood them. So it was nice that I had someone to explain to me where the property was. That was all the conversation was. There was nothing about trying to convince me to vote a certain way. I had questions, they were answered, but the thing that we aren't supposed to be able to go and view a property in person seems ludicrous at best, because I can guarantee that looking at a picture and looking at the property firsthand, you get a whole different perspective when you're able to be on site. So I've requested that part of our code, our zoning code, be addressed immediately, because I think that, I mean, I know we've got two guys here, Marty and Jeff, that have been on longer than I have, and I don't think either of you guys were aware of that, were you, or were you? That you can't go visit a site firsthand? Did you know that? Yeah. So I think this is news to all of us. It was certainly not anything nefarious that I was trying to sneak around and go look at a property. It's what we do. I feel like it's the responsible thing that needs to be done sometimes. So that's why I did it. I didn't know that I was breaking any laws or any rules.
Any other discussion? Any other questions of the two property owners? Okay, roll call this, please.
So let's understand the vote.
Oh, all right, okay, so the vote is to uphold what Board of Adjustment's decision was 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Okay? What? Correct. It would,
No, the way that the motion was made is fine. Basically, it's either send the matter back to the Board of Adjustment, which was not what the motion was, or uphold the grant of the variance.
and you're upholding it with this motion. Okay? And listening to you talk, your words said that you went for the variance because you found the hardship in the shape of the lot and being able to fit the house.
Yes.
Okay? Any other questions? Okay, roll call, please.
Sharks.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Sabers.
Aye.
Goldammer.
Aye.
Dosher. McCardle. Barrington.
Mr. Bathke abstains. Okay? Okay, motion carries. Up. Action to award bids for Cadwell Booster Station Rehabilitation Project 2023-19. Mr. Schrader.
Yep, Mr. Mayor, Council. Bids were opened on October 11th of 23 in City Hall Council Chambers at 1:30. 2 bids were received. Low bid being 605 Companies, Inc. out of Sioux Falls for $359,412. The bid tabulation is attached for your reference. The engineer's estimate was $252,000. So the project is over budget. However, we do feel after conversations with the low bidder that rebidding will not provide a lower cost outcome. So staff is recommending awarding the bid to 605 Companies at the bid mentioned above. Contractor does plan to start work early winter and have the project completed by March or April. And I can answer any questions you may have.
I just want to add one thing onto this. We do have one other issue, is that one of the 2 pumps that is planned to be replaced next year has failed. And so we want to move forward with this so that we can get that replaced instead of having to repair it and then ended up replacing it next year. We'd be spending the money twice. So this allows us to move forward and get the one that is currently broken fixed before the next season.
Motion to approve the awards.
Motion by Mr. Sabers,
Second.
second by Mr. Goldammer. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve additional funds for Steve Donovan as a grant administrator for the city's North American Wetlands Conservation Fund grant. Mr. Schrader.
Yep, Mr. Mayor, Council. On July 21st of '21, the city approved an agreement approving Steve Donovan to provide grant administration for our NACA grant. The grant allowed $20,000 to be reimbursed to the city, so those were dollars that were within the grant. These dollars have since been exhausted. The grant was anticipated to be completed in December of '23. Near historically high grain prices have made the NACA grant work more difficult. The grant has been requested to be extended an additional year, and that was approved by NACA. Mr. Donovan is an independent contractor, and services are paid at $50 per hour. Staff is requesting council approve an additional $20,000 for Mr. Donovan to continue his work. Since we have reached out to a citizen of Mitchell to assist Mr. Donovan with reaching out to producers on potential projects. So that should help reduce his time, which should reduce cost to the city, as well as hopefully help get the project moving in the right direction. And with that, I can answer any questions you may have, and Mr. Donovan is also here as well to answer any questions.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I'd like to have Mr. Donovan come up if you could, please. If nothing else, can you kind of just bring us up to speed on kind of where we're at and the amount of people you visited with? And
sure.
Obviously, no names, but, you know, just kind of, and what your suggestion is moving forward.
Well, I think everybody agrees that progress has been a little slower than we would have liked. Part of that is it's hard. We're asking landowners to consider a change of land use. You know, we're asking a farmer to consider planting grass on former farm ground, or we're asking somebody to develop wetlands in an area where they might be using it for pasture or cropland right now. And crop prices are pretty decent, and it's hard to get people interested in doing that. And then part of the issue is when I took on the job of grant administrator, I thought it was just going to be grant administration, not project development. And we had all these partners that come to all of our meetings, and the vision was that they would, you know, government agencies and non-government entities, that they would bring projects to the table that needed funding, and they would do all of the development work to get those projects developed, and the planning and the permitting and all. And that just hasn't happened to the degree that we all had hoped. And so what's happened is, instead of just doing grant administration work, I'm doing the project work too. And there's money in the grant for that. When I wrote the grant, I'm the guy that wrote the grant years ago, we had money set aside to pay for engineering, permitting, because we knew that was going to be part of the picture. But originally, it was never the intent that I be the guy doing that. And so now what's happened, like the two projects I saw on your agenda for approval, those are projects that landowners that I approached and worked with them and developed a plan, and now we have a project and an agreement, and I'm working on the permits for those projects, and it just takes a lot of time. There's a lot of, especially on the federal side, there's a lot of federal permits that we need to get to do projects like this, and it takes some time. So I'm sort of transitioning from just doing grant administration to also doing a lot of the project development work, planning, permitting. And we've got some good ones. The one project that you'll be looking at in a minute, that S&G, that's 12 different wetlands totaling 60 acres on land that the creek runs right through the middle of it. You know, those are the kind of projects that will make a difference, and we need to find more of those, more landowners that want to do projects like that. Oh, and I would say also that I've been doing these NACA grants for over 25 years. I think I've written and administered well over 30 of them, and I've never had one that's actually been completed at the end of 2 years. It just doesn't happen that way. Usually they go 4 and 5 years, and we can get extensions up to 5 years. Nobody likes that. It's obviously not desired, but That's just the reality of the way that these things work.
And with this new person that has told us they're interested in helping, that should help move things along greatly, we think.
Yeah, it's anybody that's willing to go out and spread the word and get landowners to say, hey, I'd like to hear more. That's a really important part of this puzzle.
You feel you've talked to quite a few landowners, or have you got quite a few on board, or?
Yeah. We have, and like I said, it's hard to find somebody interested in doing something that might reduce their corn yield or might reduce their pasture availability. We need more money to incentivize these kinds of practices.
How many do you think you've got,
That
less
are
than-
interested in doing something?
or that have done something in 2 years?
Well, I think right now there's enough people nibbling on the hook that we can spend the rest of this grant. And we'll need to start looking for more money to do more.
Yeah, because that's where we need to get it done up there, because that's where everybody complains about nothing getting done upstream, so. we need to work
Absolutely.
hard getting things
I mean,
done up there.
it's a 350,000 acre watershed.
Yep.
And we're going to have to impact tens of thousands of acres if we want to make a difference. And so this is just a good start, small start, but a good start, and we got to do much more.
I agree.
So let's just say there is a producer up there that is interested. Would they reach out to you or this new person, or do you pass them on to a state
Me.
agency?
Probably me.
You, and then
Yeah.
you can direct them kind of what program maybe would work best, and then start there?
Yep. And most of it, I mean, if we're talking about the NACA grant, there's certain practices that we put into the grant that we can spend money on. There's some things we can't spend money on. There's some things that we can. And, I know what those are. So if somebody's interested, yeah, I'd be the guy to talk to. And then also, if it's somebody that maybe what they want to do is a better fit for the NRCS or somebody else, I mean, yeah, I'll get them in touch with the
That's what I was going to say.
appropriate
He can pass them on
Yeah.
to the federal agencies that are necessary if that works better than the NAUCA grant for them. So, and we have been meeting with Aurora County, Davis County, Beetle County, everybody that's in the watershed, basically, so.
people, the states and the feds, and yeah, we've had good partnership meetings.
And Ducks Unlimited and Pheasant Country or whoever the pheasant.
You just said that tens of thousands of acres will be needed for holding ponds, for lack of a better use, to make an impact, to make a difference. Okay?
It's not just wetlands. By far, the biggest thing we could do is to promote the adoption of regenerative farming practices in the watershed, what NRCS is preaching every day. If we can get our producers to adopt regenerative farming practices, which, soil health stuff, cover crops, less tillage, crop rotation, getting cattle back into management of cropland, those things will dramatically reduce the amount of phosphorus and everything else that's coming down the creek. And that number one, that's what we should all be promoting. I mean, restoring wetlands is great, planting cropland back to grass is great, but if we want to impact the entire watershed, that's by far the thing that would have the most impact down the road.
Is there any way we can get a list of some of the people you contacted, just in case we know some, we could maybe push them a little bit?
So of the people that I have contacted?
Yeah, just as a council. just let it-
So, I have the list of the last 30 people he's reached out to that I can forward on to you.
Okay, I'd like to see that.
So obviously, fire steel, some producers use that as a source of water. So is there a type of program or plan out there that if they cut off the access to that, I don't know if it would be well, or if it would be some type of, I don't know if you'd have enough water for, the water district that's in that neighborhood or whatever, but is there type of programs for that too?
Oh, yeah, yeah, both within the NACA grant, because one of the things we have money for is protecting grasslands right along the creek, for example, right? And if that means fencing and creating alternative water sources for livestock, there's money to do that within the NACA grant. But there's also money, NRCS has a lot of programs to address that kind of thing. You know, whether it's drilling a well or tapping into rural water or something like that. But alternative livestock water should never be a problem. I mean, there's programs that'll help producers.
I think our non-point source funds can work with some of that as well. So we've got ways to help them.
I have a reminder that everybody needs to turn on their mic and be, with people online that can't hear, and the Mitchell Telecom is not working. So just make sure you're talking into your mics with your mics on.
And obviously, the source of water, if you do a well or whatever, would be probably better water and more consistent, because on dry years, that creek can actually go dry.
Yeah, I'm not a livestock producer, but that's what the research shows, is cattle gain a lot more weight when they're drinking good water.
Okay. Anything else for Mr. Donovan?
Thank you.
Okay. Further, need a motion?
I will motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Smith.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Charks. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve Agreement A 2023, amendment to the Rodeo lease. Mr. Johnson, you going to kick this one off?
Yep, I'll give you the brief intro on it. Got to get back to my spot. So basically, the primary purpose on this is to amend certain provisions of the existing lease as they relate to security interests on the property, basically for the purpose of allowing the Rodeo Foundation to help finance the improvements that they'd be making at the site. The existing lease didn't allow for those security interests to attach to the property, so this lays out a number of provisions that would allow those interests to attach. It also has some provisions in there that help delineate whose property is going to be, you know, is the improvement going to be rodeo property, or is the property going to be a city improvement? So it helps clarify all that. I would say outside of that purpose, there were also two other requests from the Rodeo Foundation. One of those was to extend the lease by 2 years, which would essentially cover the amount of time from when it was originally entered up through the end of this year, for time that they really haven't been able to use the property yet. And then they did also make the request that instead of the rent that they would have paid for the past calendar year and this calendar year of $7,500 per year, they asked that that rent be reduced to a total of $500 for those 2 years. And I think with that, we can probably open it up for any questions, or if the Rodeo Foundation had anything that they'd like to add.
Mr. Miskevins, you got anything you want to add?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor and members of the council, I'm Jim Miskevins. I'm currently the president of the Mitchell Rodeo Foundation and also Corn Palace Stampede Incorporated. I want to thank the council and the city for partnering with us 2 years ago in the creation of the lease, which we entered into. It really gave us the opportunity to develop a deliberate long-range plan to ensure that the Corn Palace Stampede Rodeo
is going to be around here for another 50 years. I think that the city attorney described very accurately what our contact with his office was, leading to the discussions that led to the proposed amendments to the original lease agreement. And we appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. I really think that there's, although he referred to 3, and that may be exactly accurate, I really condensed it down to 2 things. The first reason why we're requesting your consideration and modification of the lease simply relates to the nature of commercial lending. And although the lease terms were certainly appropriate at the outset of the lease, as we developed that long-range plan, started to have negotiations and discussions with our lenders, it became apparent that some language was problematic from a commercial lending standpoint and would really provide a major hurdle standing in our way to be able to enjoy this lease and use it. And so our lender worked with the city attorney on the language. I think the 2 of them did all of that legwork. And the way I look at it, it gives us the ability to borrow against and to pledge the improvements that we make without having any impact or creating any risk as to the city's real property. And so that was our goal going in, and from my review of the documents, I'm satisfied that the city attorney has created the right opportunity for us to be successful based on the requirements of commercial lending. The second reason that we ask you to consider modifying the lease is that for a number of reasons in September of 2021, when we came and you approved this lease and we entered into it, we just weren't ready to get started. Starting in the spring and with the contacts that we made with commercial lenders in furtherance of our long-range plan, we began to get ready to go. And I think at that point in time, the city was willing to do some of the final maintenance on that soccer field that needed to be done so that the city was ready to go forward too. It was sometime in July, as I recall, that the Parks Department finished with removal of sprinkler heads and other items that they wanted to salvage from that area. And it was really at that point in time that we were able to get started. As you can see from the handout that I've given you, we've made significant progress at that facility. When it's complete, that facility is going to give us a chance to not only conduct our 50-year plus rendition of the Corn Palace Stampede Rodeo, but we're going to have other events there. We intend to bring youth rodeos to town. The facilities will contain not only a main rodeo arena, but a supplemental arena, which will allow high school rodeo activities where quite often there's more than one event that needs to go on at the same time to take place at this new facility. It's going to be big enough that we're going to be able to have other events, potentially concerts, monster truck races, you name it. We think that this facility is going to give us a chance to put on more events in this community, to bring more people to town, and for our community members to have more entertainment chances outdoors each spring, fall, and summer right here at home. I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, no question.
Thank you.
Hold on a second, Jim.
Yes, sir.
Got a question on number 5. To me, it looks like you guys didn't really have a financial plan when you signed this initial lease in September 23rd to 21.
Well, the Corn Palace Stampede Incorporated was not able to rent or enter into any long-term plans at that point in time. Mitchell Rodeo Foundation was created. It's a 501c3 charitable entity recognized by the Internal Revenue Service that the Corn Palace Stampede Board of Directors agreed to create in order to have a vehicle through which we could begin making those long-term plans. With regard to the Rodeo and Corn Palace Stampede Incorporated, as of September 2021, it was not in a position to enter into any kind of long-range plan.
Are you guys current? Are you current with your lease payments now?
We are. There was litigation that was resolved in April of 2023 that resolved that matter with our current landlord. With regard to the payments due to the city, we have not made any payments yet. We've not received any invoice for payment of rent.
So technically, you have not made any payments to the city of Mitchell.
That's true.
And you've signed an agreement to make those payments. So hence not making those payments, you're an attorney, isn't that a breach of contract?
It very well may be. We've not received any invoice. And part of this proceeding tonight and the request for modification would result in the city receiving every bit of rent that was due under the original lease, plus an additional payment of $500.
So if I know we rent out the hay ground out on the bypass or the cemetery, if that individual doesn't pay their rent, what are the repercussions? Justin, you didn't get that? Okay, so I'm using an example of the hay ground lease. If they don't pay their lease, what do we do for them?
I'm not aware of that ever happening.
So Jim, another way to look at it, I guess I really looked at this, and if I leased ground from you to run cattle, in the first 2 years I didn't run cattle, are you going to give me my money back?
I'd come talk to you well before that ever happened. I must admit that much.
All right.
Yeah. Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Wait till a motion's made, would you please? So, Then we'll have discussion.
So the question I was asking it was on his statement that the city will get all of the rent plus $500. That's because they're adding 2 years to the end of the lease.
I believe that, is that right, Mr. Muskevins?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so it's $500 for the first two, but then they add the 2 years at the end to get the $7,500 back per year.
Yep, okay.
I seen you kind of roll your nose a little bit when you said something about they didn't receive an invoice.
We don't invoice.
That's what I
It
assumed.
said in the, it says in the lease that it's due to the owner at a date, so we wouldn't invoice for that normally.
Yeah. Okay, we'll entertain a motion so that we can open up to the public for discussion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, motion by Mr. Smith,
Second.
second by Mrs. Charles. Okay, further discussion. Mr. Pfaff, you can come up and talk now if you want. You come up. Pfaff, yeah.
Kelly Path. I don't really want to be standing up here, but here I am. So I just got some concerns. I sent some of you some information on sales tax returns. I got this from 990 forms that are on the internet.irs.gov site. So, in 2016 through 2020, the average sales tax was $2846.52. You guys have fronted the Corn Palace Stampede Committee, Rodeo Foundation, whatever you want to call it, $275,000. If you're paying 5% on that, That's $13,750 a year. So you have a negative return on your investment of about $11,000. Not a very good business model. You people that are in business around the table, I don't think you would enter into an agreement like that. Excuse me, I'm a little nervous, so I'm hoping I'm not making you nervous, but. I do have the 990 form for 2020 here, and for some reason, that's the most current one on the IRS site. They do show this Corn Palace Stampede Committee does show a year-end cash balance of about $90,000, with total assets of about $220,000. I have the letter of intent here from the Rodeo Foundation. I don't know a lot about this stuff, but it says the effective date of exemption was August 4th of 2021. So I'm assuming that's when they first applied for the foundation. Then there's that's been updated on 6/15/2023, and they've been informed that this foundation is exempt from federal income tax. So this is the 16-page lease agreement that the city and Jim Muskimen signed. How many of you have recently reviewed this? Anybody?
Yeah. Yeah, we've read it.
Everybody's read it? Understand it? I don't. So my questions are probably mostly for Justin. He can explain some of this to me. So on the first page, lease premises, landlord hereby leases to tenant certain city-owned real property, all that, including building structures and other improvements currently under existing or hereafter constructed, hereinafter collectively referred to as the premises. I don't know if there's any assets on the property that belong to the city, but has there been an inventory taken so that the city knows what's there and what is theirs?
The only thing that was there were sprinkler heads, and those I think have been removed that we wanted, correct?
Some fencing as well.
Some fencing as well.
So you've got everything off the property that is the city's?
That is salvageable for the city.
Okay. All right, then I'm going to go over to number 3, rent, taxes, and other charges. So that addresses the $7,500 per year payable to the landlord on or before the first day of the year. Such rent shall be non-refundable should early termination of this lease occur. Now, my understanding is nothing's been paid. Is that correct?
Correct.
Then utilities. So tenants shall be solely responsible for establishing and maintaining all utilities and other services needed to serve the premises and for tenants' operations and activities. So now they find out they don't have access to sewer out there. It's not the taxpayer's problem. They should have done their due diligence before they signed the lease. So I know there was talk of a lift station that may be required. I hope you wouldn't put a lift station in just.
We're not putting anything in relative to the sewer water.
Fine. Glad to hear it. I'll try and get through this as quickly as possible. This is more painful for me than it is you, I hope. Construction of improvements. This is on page 4, item B, towards the top third of the page.
Just for clarification, he's looking at the existing lease, I think.
Yeah. Thanks, Stephanie, for getting that to me, because the one I had was not current. All remodeling efforts and improvements shall be pre-approved by and completed into the satisfaction of the landlord's mayor or the mayor's designee. Has that happened?
They're working on improvements now.
I know, but have they been pre-approved?
Mr. Schrader?
They have been working with the Public Works Office and running everything by our building inspector and myself prior to doing work, and so far, everything has been within our satisfaction.
So you're the mayor's designee, then, I take it?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, so they're following protocol there. So at a little move there, the parties may agree in advance of an improvement being completed. That part or all of the improvement shall remain the private property of the tenant. Such agreements shall be in writing specifically listing the property, which will have that status. Has that been done also?
Part of that's what we're here for now, right?
Yep, you know, that section specifically would be very related to the request for the amendment tonight.
What? Yeah, right there. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, I'm on page 7, item 12, insurance. Have they, from the beginning of the lease, have they obtained insurance on the property?
Yes, I can't answer specifically.
I got to get a drink, I'm sorry. So, per the requirements of the lease, no insurance has been taken out on the property?
That I'm not aware of.
Mr. Skinners, have you been insured?
Yeah, it's been continuously insured.
From what date?
From the day you had the original lease?
Yes, you're right.
Has he provided proof of that?
We can get it if you need it, yes.
Okay. If you can get it, and send it to me, I'd appreciate it. All right, so, and then failure to maintain insurance, I guess we kind of covered that, so we don't have to cover that again. There's a destruction, or a clause in here for force majeure. Justin, is that common for city contracts?
Yeah, that would be very common for particularly a lease like this.
Yeah, I worked for the pipeline, they used it all the time. All right, default and remedies are down towards the bottom of page 10. Except as otherwise provided in this lease, and in addition to breaches of any other other term of this lease, this following shall be deemed to constitute a default and material breach of the terms of this lease. A is failure by tenant to pay any obligation or amount of money due under this lease. So have they breached the lease?
I'm not aware that they've made any payments. They said tonight that they have not.
So by that print right there, that would be a material breach of the lease. Correct?
Yeah, you could certainly look at it that way.
I guess, how do you folks look at it?
I guess that would be up to council to make a decision if you want to press that.
If you read the rest of that section, we've also not provided them any notice of the breach or asked them to cure it.
Why not?
That I can't answer. Hasn't happened.
I mean, you're the legal counsel.
Namely because they hadn't started any improvements and we didn't have any issues with that because that piece of property was not being used for anything else.
But they were the only one, they leased the property. They were the only ones that had access. They had full access to it. Nobody was allowed, other than them, was allowed to use it.
No, I wouldn't say that. We didn't, they had lease, correct, but I guess under their lease, they could have stopped you from using it.
You know, if I go,
If we needed it for soccer, we would have used it for soccer when the soccer field was still up on it.
fair enough, but you lease a car, and, well, but it's a lease. Just let me make my point. Just let me make.
We could have played soccer on it as it was a soccer field had we needed to.
I think that's a stretch.
Well,
Okay? I just highlighted this because I don't understand it. Justin, you can explain it. This is on page 12. Third-party beneficiaries. I don't have a clue what that means.
It just means that the contract isn't intended to create any rights for anybody that's not a party to the contract.
Okay. And then down at the bottom of section E, talks about tenant shall not mortgage or otherwise encumber the leasehold, the premises, or any installation of improvements thereon. What does that mean, I guess?
Yep, that again would be part of the process of the amendments that
Okay.
they've requested tonight.
Okay, done with that one. We're just about there. All right, now we get to the amendment to the lease. And this is where it causes me some heartburns, is that they want to essentially ask the taxpayer to give them $14,500. You know, we didn't really use the land for 2 years, so how about you just, we'll give you a couple bucks and let's just call it good. That's the way I look at it. Then number 3, it says attachment or fixtures to real estate. Normally, the South Dakota law says the fixtures to the land. So are you gonna, is that the same, even though it's worded different than what South Dakota law is?
Yeah, it would have the same impact.
Okay. How come it isn't just, how come you didn't put land in there, I guess?
Really doesn't make a difference one way or the other.
Okay. All right, now we get to number 5. This one really, I really don't understand this one. In the event that the tenant defaults on its financial obligations to a lending institution, the tenant may request that the landlord allow lending institution to assume the lease or substitute another party as a new tenant. Such requests to not be unreasonably denied or delayed. So I'm thinking I must have misread that because I emailed some of you and I thought, oh, maybe it's number 7. I apologize. I thought there was something in there about bankruptcy and they could just, the city had the right to just, or the lending, maybe that's what this says here, just assign the lease to another third party or to another party? Is that not in here?
Can you restate the question?
I guess we're gonna have to move on from that because I don't see what I was reading before.
Number 5.
Number 5? That's where I'm at. Okay, I guess I'm not seeing it now, but I thought there was something about bankruptcy and that they could just substitute another party. And maybe that's what number 5 is saying.
Well, 5 would be along those lines. Basically, if the Rodeo Foundation defaults on whatever loan they take out with the lending institution, the bank would be able to step in and assume that loan, or they could potentially find a new party to take over that existing lease. Or, excuse me, I think I misspoke the first time. The bank could take over the lease, or they could find a new party to take over the lease.
So
And that would have to be acceptable to the city council.
Yeah, so Mitchell Rodeo Foundation could go broke, start Mitchell Rodeo Foundation Revision A, and they could just pick up where
It would have to be approved by council, would it not?
Yeah, and I don't think that that would necessarily have any impact on the lease because they'd be paying us the same regardless.
I guess if I'm a financial institute and I see something like that, I got a little area lending them some money. I guess I wouldn't lend them any money with that in there.
Yeah, I guess that language was, I guess, requested by the financial institution that we were dealing with, so.
Can you name the lender that requested them?
I believe it was First Dakota.
Okay. All right, I guess that's all I have, folks, so let's, thank you for your time. Just one other question. So if it's, do you have the hammer on the tie vote?
No, this is, I do on this one?
I believe you would.
Okay, yep.
That's for sure, okay. I was going to ask Justin, when you developed this lease, did you use a template or you have to develop it from scratch, or how's that all work out?
Yeah, I guess this was a lease that I developed back 2016 or so when we were dealing with then the baseball institution. So much of the language is taken from that version and then modified over the years as it relates to any particular property that we might be dealing with at
So
that time.
it's come from, kind of from a template, and you make adjustments as necessary?
Yeah, it's one that I developed after reviewing a number of other leases that cities had.
And then anytime you develop a lease, since you work for the city of Mitchell, your priority is protecting the city of Mitchell and the Mitchell taxpayer? That's your main goal?
I would say that not even just in a lease, that's typically a large goal of mine, is to protect the city of Mitchell.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wish to address this?
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. My name is Wade Music. If you don't know me, I have several leases in the Davidson County, commercial property and single-family homes and apartments. I'll start with the original lease that I went through, read this afternoon. That says it's for a 30-year term, and on the amendment, it appears to be a 20-year term, asking for 2 additional.
Wade, I sent you that, and that was one off of the website, but that wasn't the current lease.
I think it was reduced to 25 years, yeah.
Okay.
The one that was
Original was January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2041.
That's the main difference, Wade.
Okay, well, the dates all jive, or whatever. Any lease that I do, the first payment's due the day they sign the lease. We're going on, they're 2.5 months away from making their 3rd yearly lease and have yet to pay a penny. Kelly addressed it, but I don't know who's in charge of collecting this. Has it ever been brought to the council that they've been there 1.5 years now and have yet to make their first payment? Let alone 2.5 years, going on 3? Has this ever been addressed?
No, it is not.
And who would be the person that would be responsible for that?
Well, I guess it'd be me making sure that finance officer collected the money. So I dropped the ball on that.
Okay. And the fact that they're asking for a $14,500 reduction is just absolutely absurd. Anybody in here that signed a lease, payment's due the first day, and every payment's due when it's due. How would you come 2.5 years later and say, hey, will you just forgive all that? I'll not pay you, and want to continue to do business? They pointed out it's a straight material breach of the contract and should be revoked immediately, let alone any extensions or any amendments. It says right in the current lease, the following shall be deemed to constitute and default a material breach. failure by tenant to pay any obligations or amount of money due under this lease. We've proved that's 100%. If they would have met, Kelly mentioned the insurance deal, if they would have met all the requirements that's laid out in the current lease, you would have received a copy of it if you were listed as an additional insured as per the lease agreement. If that's not to a T, Section 12, page 9, failure to maintain insurance is also a material breach of the lease, especially if it doesn't meet all the city's
If you got new
requirements.
stuff, Mr. Music, bring the new stuff up. We've already heard this, all right?
Okay,
So
well, I want to make sure it's
don't-
clear.
Well, it's clear. It's quite clear. I think it's also clear that you have an agenda here, so a little.
Yeah, and I shouldn't be insulted.
Well-
I should be given my time to
You don't,
speak.
if you've got new information, by all means, present it. Don't keep
I'm working on
repeating
it.
the same thing.
I'm rushing through it.
So
I'm
far,
not
you've said
dwelling on it.
exactly the same thing Mr. Pfaff did.
I got a couple questions on the amendment. Number 3, they want to install permanent fixtures and call them personal property, so they can remove them in case of the default, which there is the rest of them. I personally witnessed the destruction that they've done while removing these same structures at the current rodeo grounds. And you know why? Because 20 years ago, HSI let them add this same amendment to our lease. And it came back to haunt us, and we just went through a court battle with them, and that's what happened. Number 4 and 5, they're straight-up exit strategies for financial default. It even says it right in the amendment. Number 4 lets the financial institutions put liens, mortgages, or any items on the property. Most notably, they'll be leveraging the bleachers that the city gave them. And in the original lease, it strictly forbids this. Number 5 is straight up bankruptcy backdoor escape route. They're already got a strategy and plan in place for financial default, which should be a great concern for the city going forth with this deal. They've opened this door for litigation and wanting to make changes to the lease. You should be enforcing the lease and causing a material breach. If any of my tenants defaulted on this, they'd have been evicted in February of last year for default of payment. I don't know why this is such a bunch of special circumstances. It's straight up business lease. It should be enforced. The city made it, you signed it, you kept up your end of the deal. Why shouldn't they be held accountable? Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you. Anybody else wish to address this? Mr. Nagerbaum, I'm going to ask that you don't repeat everything he's been saying, as well as Mr. Pfaff, and only bring up new points, okay?
Mine is a more personal
Okay. Fire away.
view. Council, Mayor, I'm Brandon Nagelbar. I spoke to you 2 weeks ago. I've been the president of Horseman Sports for 23 years consecutive. Most of those years I dealt with Lance Carson, and it was a very nice pleasure to deal with Lance. We dealt quite often on a quick little meeting, a handshake and a smile, that we both knew we'd take care of what we discussed. The first 15, 18 years of that, of me being president, were pretty smooth. It's diminished considerably since then, since Mr. Carson is no longer with us. The biggest loser in this lawsuit has become the city of Mitchell and the surrounding communities and its people. This painted a terrible picture of the people of this town, with two nonprofit entities battling in court over a trivial misunderstanding, and like a bully on the playground trying to take the teeter-totter away from the little kids. While Lance's health was failing, I by chance met him at I-90 one Sunday morning. My wife was working. She's a nurse at the hospital. And I decided to go to breakfast at I-90, and the restaurant was quite busy. And Lance and his wife were there having breakfast, and he invited me to sit with him, so I did. And we had quite a long discussion about the rodeo committee and his concerns that they were in trouble going down the road, just for the fact that it's a volunteer for the community, but they were more concerned about just hiring things done instead of trying to get them done themselves. One little notation that has come up here, on the insurance, that's one of the things we did have problems with them, requesting insurance proof from them, and had very difficult time at it. So that's one big concern I'll just give you a heads up on. And when I rent property, and this is kind of double cross, so I'm just going to let it go. Thank you. Any questions? Thank you.
Anybody else wish to address this?
Stephanie, you bring that third-party deal up that,
In the original lease?
yeah. So, Justin, is that not contradicting what number 5 is? They're saying that basically the bank, if they default, that's the third party that you're referring to there, that cannot happen.
Well, you're also dealing with a specific provision that's relating to them, so I would not say that those are contradictory.
Okay.
Anything else?
This is similar to other lease agreements that the city has with other nonprofits that operate and use city facilities, I believe, correct?
It's a template based on other facilities that we have leased, yes. I mean, there are some differences, but most of the language is similar to, I mentioned the baseball situation before. We also have a lease at the old airport terminal, that'd be largely the same.
Anything else?
I was just going to make one comment, and Mr. Negebauer hit on it, is the biggest loser here is the community. And what we tried to do is we're trying to help promote a event that has been very successful and important to Mitchell and the surrounding area. And we couldn't take, our little kids couldn't go this year, and cowboys from all around couldn't go to the Stampede Rodeo, I should say. I know there was an event that was held on Sportsman's that they were able to attend. But the rodeo is a week-long event, and that is no longer in place. So I guess when they approached us, I guess you can be mad at us, but I think there's enough blame to go around with everybody of not hosting this. So as far as I'm concerned as a council person, I wanted to make for sure that we were able to move forward with an event that we can be proud of. And if that is extending a lease in order for that to happen, I'm all in favor of this. But it's the community that lost on this. And because two organizations could not get along. And that is a shame.
Anything else? Anybody else? Okay, we have a motion to approve the amendment to the rodeo lease. Roll call, please.
Sabers,
Aye.
Goldammer,
Aye.
Dosher, McCardle,
Nay.
Barrington,
Aye.
Bathke,
No.
Sharks. Aye. Smith.
Aye.
6-2, motion carries. Action to approve Agreement A 2023-47, Nauka Grant and S&G Partnership Project. Mr. Schrader.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Council, the attached agreement is between the City of Mitchell and S&G Partnership for a project through the NACA grant. The project is located approximately 7 miles north of Plankington on the west or south branch of the Firestill Creek. And the project will restore approximately 37.7 acres of grassland habitat, as well as 63.5 acres of wetlands. The appropriate agencies will provide assistance on the project. The agreement also appoints Steve Donovan as the city's representative for the project as required by the NACA grant. Total cost estimated to be distributed through the agreement is $63,195. The agreement is attached. If you have any other questions, and staff does recommend council approval of the attached agreement contingent on obtaining the respective permits and NACA staff approval and authorizing the mayor to sign.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Goldhammer, second by Mr. McCardle. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve agreement A 2023-48, NACA Grant Muskemons Ranch Project. Mr. Schrader.
Yep, Mr. Mayor, Council, the attached agreement is between the City of Mitchell and Muskemons Ranch for a project through the NACA grant. The project will create approximately 8 acres of restored wetlands. Again, the appropriate agencies will provide assistance on the project. The agreement also approves Steve Donovan as the city's representative as required by the NACA grant. Total cost that will be distributed through this agreement is estimated at $10,000. The agreement is attached for your information. We do recommend council approval of the attached agreement contingent on obtaining the respective permits and NACA staff approval and authorizing the mayor to sign. I will mention this is on the Dry Run Creek watershed, but it is within the NACA grant area.
How close, Joe, to the creek?
It is located, so this project would be just west of town and north of the interstate. So within roughly 2 miles.
Between the old highway and the interstate, basically.
Correct, yeah, thank you. Yep.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mrs. Charks,
Second.
second by Mr. Goldhammer. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve resolution R 2023-73, lots 2A, 2B, and 2C, a subdivision of previously platted lot 2, all in Block 8, Westwood, First Edition. Mr. Jenigas.
Mr. Mayor and Council, Planning Commission recommended approval of this 4-0 with 3 absent. There was one existing large lot, which was Lot 2. They're subdividing that down from 300 feet down to 100 for each lot. There will be duplexes put on each one of those parcels then. It does meet all zoning requirements for lot sizes, lot widths, things like that. I can answer any questions you have.
Move approval.
Motion by Mr. McCardle,
Second.
second by Mr. Goldhammer. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve resolution R 2023-74, SHPO findings in relation to the property at 514 North Main Street. Mr. Jenigas.
Mr. Mayor and Council, as Stephanie gets Bradley's on the phone.
Really loud, sorry. Okay, just making sure you're there, Jen. We're just starting.
Okay, thank you.
August 25th of 2023, we received a request for a building permit for 514 North Main Street on the 24th, we received that from Pitts Design and Build for the new Bradley's Pub and Grill located just to the south of where the existing scoreboard is right now. On the 25th, it was sent to SHPO for their preliminary review of it. During that, they requested a 11.1 case review. That got done and sent to Mitchell Historic Preservation Commission. They met on the 10th of October, on the 4th of October. For that, the minutes from that meeting are in your packet. It was recommended approval. It was I don't have this in my notes. 5-2 with 1 abstention. Is that my number? And 2 absent, yes. 5-2, 1 abstention, and 2 absent. On the 10th, it was sent back to SHPO for their final comments. During that, their final determination that the project will remove historic material from the building and does not meet Secretary of Interior standard for rehabilitation. Therefore, SHPO has made the following determination that the proposal will damage historic property, which is included in the national and state registers of historic places. However, it appears that the proposal included planning to minimize harm to the historic resource. The main focuses on SHPO's were the rooftop seating per their standards. They do not approve them unless it is a 4-story building. There are 2 buildings in Mitchell downtown that are 4 stories tall, but that is their standards that they go by. Some of the changing of the entrance, using some brick to match that isn't the original brick, and then some of the materials on the front were also their issues with it. So per the 11.1 review and South Dakota codified law, it comes back to council for you to make the determination that based on, the resolution in front of you is stated that based on consideration and relevant factors that there is no feasible and prudent alternative to the proposal and that all possible planning to minimize harm to the historic property has been considered. I can answer any questions you have from that meeting that we had. Ms. Wigahop from Pitts Design Build is here for you if you have any questions about the building itself. Bradley's are on the phone. And like I said, I can answer anything you have as well.
You know how much of the brick that they call original has already been covered from past renovation?
So on the north side of the building, there was some brick that was covered already. While they were uncovering that, while they were doing some demo on the inside, they found a couple windows that were covered from that. So they will be opening that portion back up. The front portion, I believe it was in 1960s around there when Northwestern took over that building. They put stucco back. It's actually not stucco, it's plywood with some sand on it. So that is not original on that portion. The south, north, and east side will all remain with the original brick on it. Actually, on the south side, there's 2 tones of brick there because of the building that used to be next to it. They're not doing anything to that. They're leaving it as 2 different colors of that. The spot where they're doing some extra brickwork is right at the entrance. The entrance used to actually be in about the same location that they're proposing it now. When Northwestern had it, they shifted it. You had that little walk-up area into there. So that's where the brick is that they're bringing back for that location. It's ADA compliant now. It wasn't before.
You know, I just think it's an amazing thing to come, for somebody to spend this kind of money on Main Street when we're tearing buildings down and not building them, and then to make an investment of this many dollars when 5 steakhouses already closed or eateries. You know, it's going to do nothing but enhance the Corn Palace that passed. What was the vote, 3-2? Passed.
5-2.
5-2. So it passed in the commission, and I'll make a motion that this to a pass.
Okay, motion to approve by Mr. Savers.
Second.
Second by Mr. Barrington. Further discussion? I will say Deadwood has rooftop restaurants, and that is a totally historic area, so how did they get by with it?
Can't answer that, Mr. Mayor.
So does downtown Sioux Falls, and so does Okoboji.
Yeah, so what is our SHPO office thinking?
Downtown Sioux Falls on
They
Phillips.
They just had council that I think made the right decision.
No, all the way up the new one, the rendition.
Oh, okay.
That.
So where are those steps going?
That just goes up to the grass to the south side of the building,
It's
to the
an exit
parking
off
lot.
the roof.
Yep, and then,
Exit off the roof.
well, there's steps on the south side that are metal that'll be for a fire escape, but the ones right there are just to get from the parking lot down to the sidewalk.
Because there's a,
Yeah.
So that will be on city property?
No.
They have we issued them
Yep.
a,
Easement.
thank you, easement for that property,
Yep.
several meetings ago, so. Okay. We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this?
Mayor and council, this is Jen Bradley, and I'm so sorry we're not able to be there tonight, but I just wanted to thank you guys for taking our phone calls last week and replying to our emails and text messages regarding tonight's agenda. Hopefully this is an easy 8-0 vote, as all of you have verbally committed to us on a yes vote for tonight. So with that, we thank you and many others in our community for all of your support. We've absolutely been blown away and can't wait to keep this project moving forward.
Okay. Any questions of Mrs. Bradley?
Thanks for investing in Mitchell's Main Street and our community.
Okay. All right, with no other questions or comments, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Good luck, Mrs. Bradley.
Thank you.
Action to approve Resolution R 2023-76, annexation of Blocks 1 and 2 of Maui Farms, Second Edition, a portion of Sam Street, a subdivision of previously platted Lot 4 in the east half of the west half of Section 31, Township 104 North, Range 60 West of the 5th primary in Davis County, South Dakota. Mr. Janigas.
Mr. Mayor and Council, this will look familiar for the location of what it is. You just approved the plat at your last meeting. County also has approved the plat. It has been recorded at the Register of Deeds. It's going to be an extension of Sam Street. It's Lot S, Maui Farms, Second Edition. So they're doing another 20 lots up there, proposed 20 lots for that location. They'd like to annex it into the city. So that way the road will get put in. With doing that as well, once the annexation, if it is approved, there will be a rezone for that as well, because right now it's urban development. They'd like it to be the PUD, which is Lot S, Maui Farms, Second Edition. I can answer any questions that you have.
So these will be homes, not,
No, these will be storage sheds.
okay, that's what I
That's all that's allowed in that PUD. Yep.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Goldhammer. Second by Mr. Smith. Discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve Resolution R 2023-77, creating a tax increment District 31 and approving the project plan. Mr. Johnson.
All right, well, I'll start giving a brief overview of this project. Essentially, what the main purpose of this project is to continue West 15th Avenue between Commerce Street and North Olman Street. You can see the TIF boundary, the proposed TIF boundary on the screen now. It does pick up a number of lots in the area and then includes the West 15th intersection, both a portion at North Olman and a portion in Commerce Street. In staff's review of the project plan, we did review our TIF handbook and state statutes to make sure that it was meeting all of the requirements of the code in our handbook. Staff did work with the applicant in making a few revisions so that it was compliant. At the time of the Planning Commission hearing, there was a slightly different project cost breakdown compared to the version that you see in front of you tonight. So the updated version that you have on your table would be the final version of that. Yep. And basically the primary difference for that change is between when that went to Planning Commission and that agenda was posted and everything, they actually held the bid opening in relating to the work. So we had the actual bid numbers as opposed to the engineer's estimates. And for once, those numbers actually came in considerably lower than the engineer's estimate. So very good news there. Those numbers got changed and updated based on those costs. One additional item on that project cost breakdown to be aware of is the second line. That would be labeled 15th Avenue additional grant for concrete alternative and extension of sanitary sewer to Olman at city request. When the bids came in, there was an asphalt option and a concrete option. The developer believed or what was intending to go ahead with the asphalt option because it was less cost. At the city's request, we asked that they do the concrete alternative for that instead because it should be a lot lower maintenance cost and should be a longer service life for that road. And during that process, Public Works did also work with them about extending sewer further to the west towards Ullman than the original designs called for. But these costs are intended to cover any of those changes that have been added at city's request. So the TIF should still be able to cover all of those costs, and the developer is still going to be covering all those costs up front. And I don't remember what the TIF request was before, but if you go up one page, Stephanie. Oh, it was a separate table, okay. But the current TIF amount is the $1,094,708, and it was projected to generate, I believe, over 1.4. So, hopefully everything builds out and there should be more than enough there to cover costs. Another thing to keep in mind on this one is that it is an overlapping TIF with existing County TIF 2, right? So the proceeds for the first several years will be going to help pay off that existing county TIF, and then it will roll over to this one until this one pays off. Did you?
Yeah, I was going to say, because it is overlapping with County TIF 2, that is the reason why we allowed the discretionary formula in this TIF, because the increment in the beginning wouldn't be going to this project anyway. So we did allow them to continue with the discretionary formula in this TIF, which would be different than previous TIFs.
And I think that's probably most of the stuff that's unique about this one. I mean, really the other provisions of how we've been doing our TIFs for the last several years are kind of plug and play as far as this would be a grant pass-through TIF. The increment gets passed on to the developer as it's generated on an annual basis. We've got language in there about reporting requirements, things like that, which have all become standard over the last number of TIFs that we've done. Anything else that?
I don't think so. We just covered the additional line. That second line was at the city's request to add the additional infrastructure. We are allowing the discretionary formula in this case because it's overlapping that county TIF, and we want that county TIF to pay off first. I think that's it.
Yeah, I think that probably covers it. We can certainly let Don come up and speak to anything he believes we missed.
The other thing that I would say is when you're looking at the map of the included properties, there are vacant lots to the north of 15th Street. They're not included for the purposes of estimating the increment. It would be our hope as you see the infrastructure go into place, though, that those other lots are going to be more developable or more marketable, and you'll see those develop in the future. So, wouldn't be unheard of that if there's another major development going on the north side of that we might come back in future years for a TIF. But what we're trying to do is just TIF the properties that we need to do this specific project so that we don't get too far down the road thinking things are going to happen and then they don't come to realization, and that's caused issues in the past. So the TIF review committee was good with the project plan as amended. I think council's reviewed that as well. So if you have any questions, we can certainly answer them. And I'm sure Don's here if you have questions for him. Not that I'm insisting that you come up, but.
Thought maybe that's why you brought Skylar along.
I did, so he could come up.
Oh, yeah.
The best news is that now you don't have to listen to me for an hour, go on through the project plan. I think Stephanie and Justin set it out really well, and so I'll just answer any questions that you might have.
I guess I should have noted for council too, the only difference between what was in the packet and then that second one that I handed out to you today is in the process of updating the chart. This interest is a non-project cost, but it wasn't included when we published the packet. So it didn't change anything for the TIF eligible cost, but it is a cost to the project. So we wanted to make sure it was on there. That is the only change from the handout you have to what was in the packet.
developer of this TIF is the Mitchell Area Development Corporation, and they were asked to do this. It started out with Echo, a local business wanted to expand and add some additional employees, and that's the land they picked. But they said one of the conditions for them coming would be to have 15th Avenue put in. Initially, we thought, well, let's just put it up to the Echo lot and not run it all the way to Commerce, but by looking at some of the other lots and things out there, I think it's a great move by the city to extend that 15th Avenue out to Ullman Street. So it's between Commerce and Ullman, and that's a great deal to allow future development out there, and I think it's really a good plan.
Joe, right now when you're out there, there's a little, I guess if you look at the trail that's been put there, there's like a kink in it there. Are we going to line that up, or are we going to come and have to make a jog to go out there? I'm all for the concrete road.
So, yes, so the road is going to, where the path is at, it's going to actually be north of that road.
It just makes sense. And then connecting it, I love that because it alleviates a lot. If you get out there on 8th Street, like when Twin City fans get out, oh, man, you kind of get out there. But I will not support this project because the master plan has not been followed. And if you want to comment on it, Don, you may.
I'm not sure what you're asking. I don't know anything about the master plan.
The master plan for the area, the drainage has never been addressed.
As far as?
20 foot wide and it's only 2 foot wide.
You mean the ditch?
Yep.
SPN has designed that culvert to handle the flows through in accordance with the pond to the south and the pond to the north.
You chase the water back from Ace Hardware, am I right to say this, all the way back to the south, over to me, and then back up through the ditch again?
No.
That's the way the water flows now.
I believe there's a ditch block on Highway 37 where there's a point where it goes north and south. That's correct.
And it comes back around all the way to the south, past the detail shop, and back up through me.
All right, hold on here. This isn't part of the TIF, so.
No, but I'm saying why I'm not going to approve the TIF, because he has not followed the master plan.
And that's fine to say, but we're not going to discuss the master plan when we're talking about the TIF here. So you're good at saying you're not going to support it because you don't agree with what's been done relative to the master plan, but we're getting off track. We're here to discuss the TIF and whether or not it's going to be approved. So we'll entertain a motion for the TIF.
And this image shows a little bit better. The red was hard to see on the screen.
Move approval.
Motion by Mrs. Charles, second by Mr. Barrington. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay?
Nay.
1 nay. Motion carries. Action to approve Resolution R 2023-78, authorizes Agreement A 2023-49 with the South Dakota Department of Transportation designating the mayor as authorized representative to execute and sign all documents for State Project NHTA 037, 15775, PCN 05UY, Highway 37 Improvement Project 2021-45. Mr. Schrader.
Yep, Mr. Mayor, Council, this resolution and agreement is with the city and the South Dakota DOT for maintenance and encroachment agreement for the state project, the Highway 37 project. That's planned to be started next year. The resolution authorizes the mayor to execute and deliver all documents and perform all acts necessary to effectuate the proposed work, and designates the mayor as the authorized representative of the city to do all things on its behalf and to certify and sign documents for the project. Maintenance responsibilities to the city for the shared use path, mowing adjacent to the shared use path, snow and ice removal, surface maintenance and replacement due to harm from removal of snow and ice, debris and litter control, sign repair and replacement, operation and maintenance of the lighting at the shared use path bridge over Fire Steel Creek spillway. Later on in this packet, it does show the location of where the shared use path will be. As part of this agreement, direct cost to the city relating to it is we are increasing from the state standard 5-inch to 6-inch, cost $38,350. $11,650 for an alternate path location to Raleigh Street, north of North Harmon Drive. And that was due for safety reasons. $32,120 to install chain link fence along the top of the spillway walls for safety purposes. $34,510, expanded parking area north of the spillway. Total cost, $116,630. Staff does recommend approval of the resolution and agreement with the SDDOT. And I can answer any questions you may have.
Motion by Mr. McCardle. Second, Mr. Barrington. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Second reading on ordinance O 2023-07, an ordinance establishing business improvement district number 4. This is the hotel bid that was discussed at length the last meeting.
Motion to place on second reading.
Motion by Mr. Smith, second by Mr. Barrington. Further discussion?
The only thing I would add is that it does include the language that was added by council at the last meeting.
Okay, thank you. Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Motion to
Move
adopt.
to adopt.
Motion by Mrs. Chark, second by Mr. McCardle. Further discussion? Anybody wish to address the adoption? Roll call.
Dosher. McCardle. Barrington.
Aye.
Bathke.
Aye.
Sharks.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Sabers.
Aye.
Goldammer.
Aye.
Motion carries. Review of railroad and main streetscape design proposal.
Mayor
Ms.
and
Zellwein.
Mayor and council, the reason why we have this on the agenda for tonight is when the streetscape was originally approved by the city council, Railroad and Main Street were not included as part of the bid. As Main Street and beyond was going to the businesses on Main Street to gain support, in order for additional businesses to be included in the bid, they wanted to see an improvement happen on this road. That all occurred after we had already done the schematic design, so we knew this intersection would be included, but we never had a conceptual design to look at. So with all that being said, we do have budgeted for next year 2nd, 4th, and Railroad intersections. City staff's been working with Mitchell Main Street and beyond, as well as the business owners that are adjacent to this intersection here to look at various design proposals for the intersection. This is one of the concepts that was proposed, and it was to close the roadway that goes south of Railroad on Main Street and turn it into green space. This would be still city right-of-way. We would maintain that as right-of-way, but it would be accessible to the public or for events that are held on south side of Main Street. You can also see that they added some additional bump outs on Railroad as well. We did meet with the depot first to review the plans because their business obviously would be the most affected. It would be changing some of the access points that they had in. It moved an entrance and exit into the parking lot, and they actually, the feedback that we got is they really liked this proposal out of the 3, which we were glad to hear that as well. They also did Main Street and beyond. I think Ashley's here, so she can give you more background if you'd like, but they also visited with the other adjacent business owners to ensure we had some concerns, wanting to make sure one of the bump outs over here wasn't going to affect the business. A couple comments that were brought up is that by adding green space into this parking lot as well, it's going to make it more inviting for people as they enter South Main. When we did the cost comparison of adding the green space versus just redoing the road surfacing that we would normally have to do, it's still within budget. If we weren't doing the green space, we were still going to redo the road here. So either way, we would have that cost. It's actually not anymore for us to do the grass. In internal conversations, city staff like this proposal. There are sometimes issues with snow removal and maintenance, since that is kind of a dead-end short road, so they like that option as well. Additionally, in visiting with the surrounding businesses, and I'm not going to speak for anyone else, but there was also a conversation about potentially getting a maintenance agreement to help for the care of that lawn while the current owners still own the depot. We would obviously include sprinkling like we do in the other areas as well, so we don't have to worry about that. I'm trying to see if I missed anything else that was in my staff report. The green space, streetscape part of the green space part of the streetscape improvements have always come out of the entertainment tax fund that's included in the 2024 budget. Any features, the garbage cans, the benches, the bike racks, if they do a monument or a sculpture, those kind of things, the Main Street bid has been paying for those items. So the city's not paying for those costs. Obviously, you can see, if you're familiar with the depot, it also shows some changes to the front of the depot. That's just to show a concept of what the owners could do to their business. The city would not do any work on the private property. We would just be funding the work on the public property. However, just like we've done with other business owners along Streetscape, we can coordinate that work so it's happening at the same time if we need to. We did that with the chamber as well as 5th and Main on the northwest corner. I had to get my arrows right here in my head. Let's see here. We see it as a benefit to operation. We like the elimination of the small section of the street. We think it's a positive improvement to the south end of Main Street. Main Street and Beyond has been holding events down there. We think that will enhance that as well. We did want to bring it to council because we did not have a conceptual design for this intersection when we initially approved the streetscape. So we would like to get council's approval to move forward with this proposal before we go that way. So we just want to make sure council has the right to give input, ask questions, and give approval so that we know we're going in the right direction. And I'll let Ashley and John or Stephanie or anybody else add to anything I just stated. I see Ashley's coming, so we'll let her come.
Hello, Council and Mayor. Ashley with Mitchell Main Street. Yes, so if you have any questions, I guess, on this design or from the business owners themselves, I have been with the window shop and then John and Stephanie from the depot.
Just one question for John or Stephanie. Are you going to move your main entrance from where it is over to the west?
No. Mayor, Council, Stephanie Vaughn from the depot. No, we would leave the entrance the same where it's at. And then obviously we'd have to coordinate in the improvements, but we're willing to pay for those improvements that we can do to our property in order to mesh with what the city wants to do with the green space. We are really happy with the design. We think it's going to be an asset to the community, to Main Street.
Oh, I like it, don't get me wrong. I was just noticing the parking is all towards the west side.
Correct.
For your secondary door, if you will, please.
Correct, yeah. That's no longer, that's an emergency exit only. And so we don't have a double door there. We have a double door on the main entrance. So, there'd be a little flow there, but I think it would still work.
That's so you can build up your appetite as you go in there.
Yeah, you're going to have to walk now.
The other comment too is we may still, shift where some of the trees are shown and that kind of thing. This is just a conceptual illustration so people can see what it might look like, but we would invite those affected business owners to have input as we finalize the design.
Thank you. Anything else?
So I guess one question I had with the design as it sits now, is there ADA planned from the parking lot somewhere, like a ramp of some kind? Or is that
Yes.
just an oversight?
Yep, that's correct. Like we said, this is just a rendering.
Okay.
All ADA requirements will be followed for access.
Yeah. Anything else? You need a motion to approve this?
I think we would like to have the council on record that you're okay with this design since we need to give them direction to finalize the design.
Do we have to go through a process of vacating this street?
No, because it's still going to be public property. Oh, vacating the street, Joe.
No, it will remain public right away. We have utilities in those types of things underneath. We plan to have it stay a public space. If you were to vacate it, half of it would go to the adjoining property.
But we had to do something for 6th Street, though. You remember, Justin?
We did vacate that.
Oh, we did.
Yeah.
But we probably
But it wouldn't have been necessary. It's not a requirement that you vacate it. It can still be used as public right-of-way. It's just not used for vehicle traffic.
Do you have a question, Mr. Brafke?
Yeah, I do. So I love it too, except two things I want to say. So if they want to have like a band come in, we'll still have to approve that because it's on public property.
Correct.
Okay. And then second, this question for Joe. I'd be curious, back to the little bump outs. I'm curious what the snowplow drivers think.
Oh, it's obviously not as easy as a straight road. We do put up the snow flags so they can see where the curb is at. But yeah, it does take a little more time, and we do need to be a little more careful, and they probably are going to be replaced a little more often than normal curb.
Okay. I just,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, John. Go ahead.
I just wanted to address that part. If you look at the curb on that little stretch of Main Street, it's already taken a good beating from snowplows, and that's a straight curb. So, if there is any kind of a beating taken by that curbing on Railroad, it can be done with markings and things like that. But yeah, we already have issues down there with, first off, railroad trucks that are extremely heavy, and of course then the plows that to make it, and making that turn. They won't have to make that turn. And we actually cleaned the lot, the big lot already. The city hauls the snow away for us, so we actually clean that lot. So we're taking the precautions necessary to make sure that doesn't happen. We will obviously have curb in there as opposed to a flat lot, but those, we can make that work, and we can certainly live with that as well. So I just want to point that out.
All right, thank you. Do you have something else, Mr. Mayor?
I guess I drove down and looked at the one on Fifth Street, and this, I don't know who this would have to go to, but maybe a few less plants. It's quite crowded. I'm not a landscape person, flowers and that, but it is quite crowded if you go there. And I look back and I think, be careful what you plant there, because you go out by, like Taco John's, they had to cut them back down because they grew too tall for the vehicles to get by. You know.
I think the intent is you kind of want cover on that ground so that you're not having other things pop up and it's less maintenance.
Okay, anything else?
Lori?
We need a motion.
Motion to support.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Goldenhammer, second by Mrs. Charks. Further discussion? Anybody else in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Presentation on 2023 bridge inspections by Bros Engineering. You gentlemen have been sitting patiently through all this.
Thank you.
Now you all leave.
I'll be brief.
Good luck.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I thank you for affording me the time to share our findings in regard to the routine bridge inspections for 2023 for the city of Mitchell as required by the state of South Dakota DOT. On our list this year for Mitchell was 3 bridges. Most of you are familiar with them all, but if you're not, first one, I'll just go through them in order as the package shows. It's the canal bridge out at Lake Mitchell on the west end. It's that 45-foot single-span pre-stressed double T-beam bridge. It's over the canal. A couple of years ago, in 2021, we recommended reducing the load rating due to a crushing abutment cap. The way it was constructed originally to afford the super elevation for the roadway, they simply coped out a section of the cap, and they didn't seal that, so that section of the cap is rotting. It's right in the middle. It's right over a pile. We've been monitoring it. It hasn't significantly increased in damage. It still is slowly advancing. As you can see, we're starting to delaminate some timber in that picture. Right now, we've got a preliminary engineering grant going forward on options for replacement or rehabilitation. I'm not sure where that's at right now. That's not in my purview for this meeting. If there's any questions on any of these, feel free to jump in anytime. Like I said, I'll keep it brief. Most of you have seen these pictures before, but for the new folks, I'll walk through it slowly if you need me
Yeah,
to.
just out of curiosity, why, what's been done since the last time we had this discussion?
Nothing. I mean, there's nothing until just the preliminary grant to investigate what our options are going forward.
Okay.
We've reduced the load rate by half.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, that part. Yeah.
I leaned over and I said, didn't we already go through this?
Yeah, because we do these, this one's actually on an annual inspection cycle now because of the cap. So you'll see me every year talking about this until something's gone. Right, and then the other ones are basically a 24-month inspection cycle now, so.
We
you'll see
could
me every
call
other
it
year
the
for
Susan
those.
Sharks Bridge if you don't.
There you go. Tempting.
But if you have any questions, like I said, feel free to jump in
Okay,
anytime.
thank you.
The next bridge is 149-095. It's a three-span continuous composite steel girder bridge with a concrete deck and concrete abutments on Sanborn over the viaduct. It's the viaduct over the railroad tracks. As you know, there was a preservation project performed on this a couple of years ago. In 2019, in fact, it had a two-coat polymer chip seal put on, approach slabs replaced, some sections of roadway replaced, the sidewalks repaired, and other touch-up work.
How old is that Sanborn Bridge?
Sanborn Bridge? It is, I'll tell you right now. It was built in 2001. Yep. I think the things, both these structures that we're going to talk about, that one and the next one coming up, which is the Foster Street Bridge, very similar rehabilitation jobs in scope, but they both had very similar issues with respect to construction style. They basically built the fill up to put the bridge over the top. A lot of movement in that type of structure, so it's not uncommon that you see the deterioration both of these have suffered over the years. So a good way to keep it from continuing to degrade would be to do what we did, which is apply a polymer chip seal over it, seal the cracks so moisture and salt can't get in there and propagate and expand the re-steel and whatnot. So, and that leads me to the last one, which is the Foster Street Bridge. It's very similar in scope, almost identical to what was performed on Sanborn. And I think both projects came out fairly decent. I mean, they hit the design scope as intended. There are always minor superficial issues that come up with just about all of them. But hopefully we've nipped that in the bud for you. That's pretty much it. This is just my requirement, so you guys know what's up, and if you have questions, we can discuss.
You have questions? Thank you for keeping that short.
We probably asked you this before, but what is the process on the canal bridge with applying for the grant? Is it something that we do annually and just haven't gotten? Or?
This one, yeah, I'm not sure when we applied for this one originally. I'd have to defer to my colleague.
So this one we applied for at about this time last year, and we were awarded. So they've been working on it through 23. And through that design, then they'll have a recommendation moving forward. It's a points, and they can speak better to this than I can, but there's a point system for the big grant for rehab or replacement. So from their determination in their design portion of the grant, we'll hopefully be moving forward with a replacement project. And I believe the share on that is that an 18?
Yeah, 82-18 typically.
Yep. So the city would be responsible for 18% of the total project cost.
What's that? Unless we buy out. Yeah, you can actually buy points in. So, by percentage and preliminary engineering or preliminary design, they can all buy points based off the scoring system. So what we'll do is we'll get to the point where through this process where we'll evaluate how you score and see where you're going to score with respect to all the other structures in the state. And you guys can determine from there whether or not you want to add more skin in the game or you want to just ride it out for a bit.
And the process. And the process isn't fast, but it's good to see that it hasn't gotten worse, per se.
Correct.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you all for your time.
Okay, now before I slam this gavel and you all get up and run, remember, you're going to continue the budget hearing.
So you might want to, can we think, does anyone need a 5-minute break?
That's up to him. We're adjourned. I'll turn it over to President McCardle for the budget hearing.
Mike, I feel like I could have explained this a little bit clearer. So, why don't we set it up in the amendment? Because it's the tenant that has to make the request. So say Rodeo Foundation defaults or something. Sure. They're the ones that are going to tell us the bank. Somebody else gets it. Yeah. They don't just say that bank says no. It's ours now. I didn't get to that very clearly when we were talking.
I knew I stumped you, just a little bit, you paused, and I'm like,
If we get 100% of the revenue plus more revenue, and we spend 100% of the expenses, you know what I mean? I think that's what is missing maybe. And if no one tells me, you know. I'll unmute you. Use your gavel.
All right. Matt?
Hey, we're in session.
Okay, what else do we want to discuss on the budget?
Well, first of all, going back to Dan's, oh, Kevin's not, did Kevin take off? Oh, okay.
There's probably a line in the bathroom.
Yeah, there probably is. So anyway, I had a little bit misunderstood. I know we took the money out of the golf and gave it into the general fund. And I could see where Dan's coming from, is we had that money sitting there waiting to pay for some equipment that was going to be delivered in '25. Is that a true statement?
Say that again? No. Say it again. I'm not sure I
Okay.
followed.
We're talking '24 budget right now.
Right.
In all reality, he's talking about equipment that is going to be purchased and paid for in '25.
So I will tell you that what the department had said during the management review of the budget is that in 2025, he wanted to start first year of like a 3 or a 5-year lease, do you remember? With an annual payment. We wouldn't put that payment in the '24 budget because it wouldn't be due till
Right.
2025.
Right.
So what we told Kevin is he could come to council during 2024, request, or even now, request permission to order it, and then he would put that lease payment in 2025's budget. I think what Dan was saying is they would rather pay for the whole thing up front and not do the lease payment. But that would be committing to, I don't remember what the total cost was. It was like $65,000 a year over 5 years. So whatever the total cost of that project, that payment would be up front, you would be completely depleting the reserves of the golf fund to do it all at once.
But yet the 140 or 180 or 160 that Dan was talking about is a long way from the 335.
Right.
The motors cost.
Right, and but the plan was, let us buy the equipment because we need it, and we'll pay it back over a multi-year time period.
But
Which we've done that before. We've done that with golf carts.
Well,
Their financing was rhetorical.
so, right, so here's the thing. Even if you take the $140,000 out, you would be fully spending down 100% of the fund to purchase that all up front in 2025. I don't know if you want to be in that position to do that either.
I don't think so. Yeah, I'm just trying to understand everything. Honestly, I think your plan of saying, let's get permission, we know there's several months or years.
They could do that now and say we're going to put it in
council. Bring it in front of council and say, would you allow us with, and this is the plan that we want to put in place. I understand what Dan's saying too, is when we run an enterprise fund, they're supposed to pay for themselves. Well, eventually they will, but it's going to, well, we did save and we did have money, but again, there is phase 2 of that project too. But in their mind, they were hoping to have that particular amount of money sitting there to pay for future equipment needs.
Well, and that's also why I was asking council, and I had mentioned this at the last meeting, that yes, the $100,000 loan, the cash was never transferred, but we have an existing loan on the books from I can't see my numbers over it.
2013.
That still has $75,000 left on it. So technically, in this resolution, if you pulled up this resolution 3063, Michelle has the authority to take that $75,000 right now in the resolution. But we've never transferred it because we didn't want to deplete the fund and then end up having to do a general fund transfer later. So when I suggested that you guys forgive this loan, because then they'd still have all that cash in their fund. So if we take $120,000 from the general fund into the golf fund, and then we take the $75,000 back on the loan that's already authorized to be paid back in that resolution, you're just transferring money back and forth, and we're not making any
So
progress.
the most important thing here is we've got to get the equipment replaced at some point in time. So Kevin, will you get with the board and figure out what the list is, and then what the delivery dates are, and then bring it to us accordingly, so then we can start planning at least.
Payment options.
Yes, yes.
Right,
Yeah.
and I think there's just got to be some creative financing. I believe it's all there. I mean, it's doable. It might be something where Next year, they take 100 grand of their money they have in reserves, and they lease, or however you want to say it, finance the other part through the city to get the money and start paying back in 2025. So they're not going to deplete all their funds, as
Right.
Stephanie is saying. Right, less interest, less
Maybe they
amount
pay
borrowed
back,
from
yeah,
us,
true,
less
yeah.
payment options every year. There's no doubt in my mind we can get it done, and we can't wait till 2025 to get the mowers. I think we've all spoken of that highly, but I think we move forward with what we have on the books, and then we figure out some creative stuff to get this thing going in 2024. and
Here's
get
what
those mowers
Jason
out
asked
there.
for. This is what Jason asked for. And like I said, we talked about this,
But that's not till
but
2025.
they're not till 2025. So since it's not a 25 purchase, I said it doesn't go into this budget, but you can still seek approval from council to order so that when you get to 25, they're ready, and then you put the payment into the 25 budget.
I think that-
Not much of a waiting period on the
Right.
equipment. It's not that if you decided you wanted to buy it outright, it's available next year.
You have
It's
to wait
still
2
not
years
long
no matter
waiting
what.
period.
And I think there's that option to at least bring back to council for us to take a look at it and hopefully approve that to get these things ordered, even though we don't know when they're going to be here. It might be 2025, but to get the ball rolling, I believe there's some creative ideas that can be put together with Kevin and Stephanie and to bring to the council for us to get approval and get these things coming.
Is Toro the only brand out there? Is Toro the only brand out there, or is it just
Well-
preferred brand?
Jacobson it's got to be bad.
Well, and I think what actually Kevin said is it's on state contract now. So they would be buying what's off state contract. They wouldn't have to go through the bid.
But you can buy direct.
I'm just asking, because we have a local John Deere dealer
Yeah.
that
Nobody in the Midwest uses John Deere golf courses.